What's going on, you loyal listeners? Thank you for tuning in to the L Squared Podcast. I'm your host here, Luke Larson, and joining me today, as per the unusual, to assist me in leisurely launching you into levity, is the popcorn farmer himself, Squirrel Feed Manager Extraordinaire, friend of the pod, Burdette Dog himself, Tyler Burdette Backus. Woo!
Hey everybody!
Crowd's going wild.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for welcoming me back. It's glad to be back. I'm happy to be here, everyone.
So it's been almost 2 years since you've been on here.
I believe so.
And the last time we talked, we had the audacity to call our episode the full Marvel Universe review, and I believe that was from the inception until, was it Spider-Man Homecoming?
Yep, it looks like the last movie that we talked about was Spider-Man Homecoming, so got a few to catch up on.
Yeah, so as you guys know, that Marvel train doesn't really stop. It just keeps on going. But we have hit what you could call an end point. I don't know.
End of an era.
End of an era for sure. Yeah. So we're going to pick up where we left off and kind of review the ones that we've missed since then, and then kind of give you an idea of where we think Marvel's going to go, because where do you go from here? So we're going to get right into it. Look, we're less than 3 minutes in. We're already talking about what we're going to talk about on the episode. This might be a new record for the L Squared Podcast, to be honest.
We're not messing around. We're hopping right into it.
No, we got to get right into it. So we left off at Spider-Man Homecoming. So we'll start with saying this. We're not going to touch back on what we've already talked about. So I would highly encourage you to go listen to that first episode, and you'll get our full thoughts all the way from the first Iron Man all the way till Spider-Man Homecoming. So we're just going to pick it up where we left off. So that at that point, I believe we were talking about how we were... I know I was super excited for Thor Ragnarok, which was about to come out. I've been a big fan of Taika Waititi for quite a few years now, and I was excited to see what he was going to do with the film. Do you remember your expectations going into Thor Ragnarok?
Oh, I was extremely excited for Thor Ragnarok. There was, I guess, a few line of movies that I just knew that they were coming out, and I was going to go see willingly. But Thor Ragnarok had me excited, counting down the release date. I just couldn't wait for this movie, being kind of introducing some more of those Asgardian, or at least just, what is the word I'm thinking of?
Like
Norse
mythology.
Norse mythology. I was just super excited to see some of that stuff all come back. So I was fully on board, counting down the days for this movie to come out.
So this one came out, and I'll just say, like, honestly, I've been a Thor guy. I liked him in the comics, and when the movies came out, you literally, like, you couldn't have cast anyone better to play Thor than Chris Hemsworth. Just what a wonderful casting. So I'm just saying, I've been on board for him. But the problem I always had with Thor was that he didn't have, like, a great standalone movie to go along with him. Like, the first Thor is fine. I think it was better at the time it came out.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially for the time.
Yeah.
At the time, it was awesome. I guess, if you kind of compare it now.
It hasn't really aged super well.
Just compared to what we've had in the theater, a lot of these movies that we've had have been such a step up in a joyride, and even including other superheroes and things like that. And so I guess the original Thor movie kind of dates itself in today's standards, but back in the day, it was
cool.
Yeah, it was definitely cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and it gave us our first look at Loki.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody fell in love with Loki then. But then the second Thor was pretty forgettable. It's pretty meh. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like you spend more time on Asgard, and you spend time with Loki, and like it's fine. It's not bad. I don't know if Marvel's made like a bad movie, but this would definitely be towards the bottom. But like the second Thor was fine. And I will say that Thor Ragnarok is maybe my favorite Marvel movie that's ever come out. I mean, it's just it was so needed for this character. Like this character like had so much potential, and it's like didn't really know what to do with him. And when Taika came in, he just has that such unique New Zealand sense of humor, and it just added so much energy and a new depth to this character. And we got to see him do all kinds of stuff that we haven't seen him, do before. And I don't know, what were your initial thoughts of this film?
Well, I remember watching the trailers for it and just not sure the direction that this movie was going to take. Remember seeing parts that it seemed really fun and exciting, especially when they go to like the gladiator arena and things like that, but also still knowing what Ragnarok is and literally the
end of everything.
Yeah. And so I remember thinking like it looks like it has the fun Marvel, but I also know it has to be the end of like Asgard. So I knew that it was going to try to blend both, but I just had no idea what to expect in this movie. Because it had its fun element, but I just knew it also was tied with death, and so I had no idea what to expect, but just couldn't wait to go see it.
So, how did it live up to your expectations? How was the end product for you? Did it balance the fun and the end times of Asgard well enough for you?
Yeah, I definitely liked it a lot, and I think it also helped having the Hulk in it as well.
Yeah,
it really. I mean, they could have, and kind of throwing back to what we were talking about with the original movies. Maybe if this movie came out for Thor 1, Thor 2, they wouldn't have mixed in another superhero. And
yeah, that's a good point.
And it probably would have been another one of those kind of Thor movies with a random, strong guy that he fights, and it might have lost some of its memorabilia. But being with the Hulk and everything being kind of Thor's rival in the movie, I really enjoyed it. It even, I'd say, surpassed kind of what I expected out of the movie, because again, I had no idea what direction this movie was going to take, and so I just had a fun time the whole movie. I just remember having fun times, stressful times, and then just back to more fun times. I'd say it even slightly surpassed my expectation.
Awesome. Yeah, and like that was one of the cool things, obviously, is that they basically did Planet Hulk in the middle of a Thor movie, because Planet Hulk is this great comic storyline. If you don't know, you should look it up. But it's one of the definitive Hulk stories, and they basically did it in this movie, and it fit very well. There's so many little things that I feel like there was so much care and effort put into this that like a lot of Marvel movies don't need to have.
Yes.
Like a lot of them don't need to put that much care into it because they're going to make money and they're going to be successful. But this one just had, I don't know if everybody likes it, but I love that New Zealand style of humor. Is hilarious to me. And I just love like little things, like at the beginning when they're reenacting basically Thor the Dark World and just making fun of it. In the beginning of the movie,
yeah, for sure.
Like the melodrama of it, how just dumb it is. And then, like, I don't know, there's so many jokes in there that are quick, and I will say, like, I would have watched Jeff Goldblum for just 30 hours on his own, just his character as a Grandmaster.
What a wild,
man,
the whole time,
loved it.
such a wild character.
Loved it.
Yeah, he was very interesting.
Yeah, very eccentric. And just, he added a lot. And there's so many layers to it. Like, it's almost like, and the visuals with the, what are they called? The flying warriors on the horses. Valerians?
Yeah.
Something like that, I think.
Not sure.
It sounds right.
Yep.
I think Valerians, but it was like, those visuals, I was like, wow, it's amazing. Like, it looks like an old oil painting come to life. And I feel like it was what Wonder Woman was trying to do, but like, and they did well, but I think that Thor Ragnarok took it like a step further. And the villain Hela was great, the goddess of death, and his sister. And I loved like the themes of like, no, like Odin didn't just peacefully get all this stuff. Like, he took it by force, and he was this ruthless killer basically to get all this stuff. And it was just so interesting. And she was a great villain, and it was hilarious, and tied a bunch of stuff together, and it made the character feel fresh, and it felt like we could go in a bunch of different directions. So this was another one where it was like, you think of like standouts, like I think of when Marvel took that turn with the double hit of the Winter Soldier and then Guardians of the Galaxy, when it was like, these are two unique, great movies that it's like, if Marvel can keep pumping these out, we're super pumped for whatever they do. And this was another one that I was like, of all the Marvel movies we've seen, this one was like, stood on its own, was super unique. And there's
it probably one of the first Marvel movies where you knew that they probably weren't going to win, isn't it? Because
I think it probably was. Yeah.
Because once Hela arrived on stage, I was even wondering, like, I don't know, are they going to do, like, are they still going to triumph? I didn't think that they were in the end. But yeah, I mean, they don't triumph. I mean, Hela still takes over as should. And so yeah, I mean, it kind of, didn't have like the basic superhero saves the day ending. I mean, Hela still took over, and so that was even kind of a new formula to take.
That's a great point, and it's like that kind of foreshadowed more things to come. But yeah, they didn't, and it was such an I loved it. Like I said in the last episode, that's what was my favorite part probably about Doctor Strange, was the ending was so unique. And with this too, it was like, it's like they set up Hela as this great, unbelievable, unbeatable villain, and they technically didn't really beat her. Mm-hmm. They just set loose this demon god to destroy Asgard, and then they just kind of were like, well, Asgard isn't a place, it's a people. It's wherever we go, we're gonna make it Asgard. And then it was just so beautiful. Yeah. It just fits so well. It's just, man, that's great stuff. For a movie to do that many things really says a lot.
And to kind of throw back to a little bit ago what we were talking about, I think it was really good for Hulk to get some extra light too. Yeah. I mean, a Hulk movie, so far we've just seen Hulk fighting, like the government.
Government tanks.
Yeah.
And it's just been the same story of like, oh, I can't control it. Oh, I went crazy. Now I'm sad about it.
And so putting Hulk on another planet, where he kind of fit in more and he didn't have to worry about any of that extra stuff, it felt like Hulk jumped up probably to a lot of people. Became a much cooler character, especially since he's only had the Incredible Hulk movie kind of under his name. So being that he got a lot of screen time in here, I think that really showed a lot of people who the Hulk is as well.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it set up what they were going to do later too. But it was, there's a lot of levels there, and it's just. This is the type of movie where you're like, man, Marvel just gets it. They take chances and they're calculated risks and they work out. And it's just, this is maybe my favorite Marvel movie, and it's maybe the most rewatchable, and the movie that has the most, like, it's just so start to finish its own, and it doesn't need anybody. Oh, and Carl Urban's small character. When he's the gatekeeper or whatever, the kind of cowardly guy, where he's talking to the ladies about guns and all
that was hilarious.
And just like the beat of the dragon's head getting cut off and just slowly scrape it across the floor. Oh man.
Yeah, a lot of funny jokes. We keep bringing some back.
Super funny,
some that I've forgotten. And, I remember having quite the ball with it.
Yeah.
Even a lot of the Hulk lines and when Thor and him would meet, and we're kind of in, like, the back rooms and stuff. They had a lot of funny banter back and forth as well. So, really solid jokes, I'd say, in this, probably throughout this whole movie.
So fast. There's so many of them that you will miss them the first time you see it. But that's what makes it so rewatchable, is it's just bang, 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 bang. Like, just there's just so many little ones. Like there was one that killed me in the theater. That it's like where he was talking about how Loki can't be trusted and how he's tricksy or whatever, and he was like, there was this time when we were children, and he turned into a snake. He knows I love snakes, so I picked him up, and he turned his face and went, "Bah, it's me!" Just dumb little things like that just killed me. And it's like, because you think it's just going to be a dumb joke, like, oh, he turned into a snake and scared him. He's like, no, he knew I love snakes, so I picked him up.
Yeah, kind of turning other jokes around to where you think you're going to get the punchline.
Right.
You don't yet.
Yeah.
And then when you're thinking what the next punchline it is, they give it to you.
Yeah, exactly. And then like that joke technically later on led to a great story point where you saw more of their camaraderie as brothers, and they talked about their past together. And then Loki was gonna betray him, and Thor knew that and thought ahead and like was one step ahead of him, which has never happened in any other movie.
Yep.
And it was getting kind of annoying where Thor would just fall for all his tricks all the time. And this was the first time when he was like, he saw ahead and he didn't do it. So this movie really sings, and it's like, it's not just like a new guy coming in and giving his take. Like I feel like Iron Man 3 wanted to be this movie. You know, it got Shane Black in there. He's kind of a funnier director, and it was trying new things, but it just didn't quite mesh as well as we all wanted it to. And I really want to rewatch it because I feel like now knowing
definitely
everything we know would be cool. But I feel like this movie accomplished what Iron Man 3 was aspiring to do, to be different, but also inherently know these characters and grow them and not disrespect their past, and also send them in a whole new direction that's better and breathes new life into it. So I love this movie.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah. This movie is a great one. I don't know, if you don't have time for all the Marvel movies, this should definitely be within a top 5 at least to watch. Like it's got to be up there for anything to watch, just for fun banter movie.
And it doesn't heavily rely on the previous Thors or the previous Avengers. Not really that much. It pretty much almost stands exclusively on its own, which is also very impressive.
Yeah, you got your occasional callbacks, kind of like what we said with like the theater performance back at Asgard at the very beginning. But you can just kind of watch that and still get a chuckle out of it.
Yeah, context clues, figure it out. Yeah,
which you don't need the to know everything. But then even after that, then it's just like a phenomenal film, no matter if you've seen any of the other ones or not.
Yeah.
Really, so
right.
Yeah, definitely a watch.
So the next one that came out was Black Panther. So this was one that similar with Doctor Strange, like I said in the last episode. I'm just going to keep plugging it until you guys listen to it.
Yep.
But on the last one, I said that growing up, I was a huge Doctor Strange fan. Huge. I liked him a lot. He's one of my favorites. And so it was just cool to see a superhero that wasn't a mainstream hit on the screen, have his own movie and that kind of stuff. That was kind of one of the coolest parts of that movie for me. And Black Panther was kind of similar. Black Panther's a well-known character, but he wasn't everybody's favorite or whatever. He wasn't as mainstream as other people. And I always loved Black Panther. One of the things I loved about him is that he was the king of Wakanda. So when everything was going on, he could just be I'm going to go run my country. I don't have time for your stupid little squabbles or whatever. But Black Panther was a character I loved because of his integrity and his honor, and I just love the character. So this was cool too. We saw him in Civil War, was his first appearance. So we had a little taste of him, and I thought he was great in that. Really did a great job. So this was his first full movie, and I'll say my expectations going to this were, I was hoping it was going to be another similar to Thor Ragnarok. It was going to be different. I was hoping it was going to be the most different. It was going to be, it's Ryan Coogler directing it, who did Fruitvale Station and Creed. And I was I'm excited to have more of a young influence and maybe have more of a point of view from Black culture, and just kind of get more of those influences. And I was ready for this to be the most different and the most unique kind of Marvel movie. So that's kind of what I was. So what were your expectations going into it?
With Black Panther, I actually really wasn't following up on it at all. I'm gonna kind of say something that maybe doesn't make sense to some people, but
I think we have music for that.
Ever since like the Doctor Strange and Black Panther were announced and everything like that, I was very excited for Marvel. I was very excited to see movies that weren't like Captain America, Thor,
Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man. And so I was very just excited to see them making their own movies for characters that most people would consider the side characters in the movie, to show, no, these guys are just as important as everyone else. But I think it was kind of in a phase where I was trying to stay away from trailers because obviously I was going to see this movie anyways, and I just like to keep a fresh mind.
Yep.
And so I didn't actually watch this movie when it came out in theaters either. And so I was just like basically as level as I could be with this movie. I wasn't excited nor non-excited. And so once I saw it, I definitely enjoyed it. It's not like the one that we're just coming off of course. But in its own field, definitely entertaining still all the way through. Is it Wakanda? Yep. Just that whole civilization is very interesting because we've never seen it, and so when I guess you could maybe even consider it kind of a little bit more informational of a movie, which I love as well. Maybe some people don't like that as much, but still, it was just so interesting all throughout that I still very much enjoyed the movie.
Yeah. So coming away from this, I was a little bit disappointed. Partly because I love Black Panther as a character, and then partly because I was, excited to see it. I think the main reason I was disappointed was because this was pretty paint by numbers as far as Marvel movies go. And there is a formula, but it was just like coming off Thor Ragnarok when everything was so fresh and new and also respected the character. I was just pumped to be like, all right, well, this is a guy who, like, finally a black director and, like, guy who's done great movies, and this is the most unique, one of the most iconic black characters in Marvel history, and so I was super excited to just see kind of that new, a new take on it. But I was kind of disappointed to see that they relied on kind of the basic formula, and it was fine. Like, there were parts definitely with, like, Michael B. Jordan was great as the villain Killmonger. He was the best parts of it. But it's kind of hard to do. Part of it was because he was introduced in Civil War. So going into this movie, he was almost a fully fleshed out character, so there wasn't much of an arc for him to go on. The only real arc was that he decided to share the technology with the world and not hide it anymore. But that's not much of a character arc. Like, he kind of already started fully fledged as Black Panther, so there wasn't much to go. And when it's a first movie, you want to see that story arc, and, like, we didn't necessarily need to see from the beginning, but it would have been nice to kind of see maybe his dad do it a little bit, or see the mantle passed down to him or something, and I know it's hard with when he was already the Black Panther in Civil War, but I don't know, it put it in a tough situation. So when you're watching it, you're like, okay, well, this is boring because he's overpowered, because he's at his complete form almost, so there's nowhere for him to go. He's already fully fledged character. We're not seeing him fail, so we're not, like, relating to him as much. And I really liked Ulysses Claw. I thought he was an interesting villain, but he got killed off, which was surprising. When Michael B. Jordan killed him, it was like, whoa, I did not expect that. Yeah. And I was, like, just starting to get into him as a villain, and then he got killed. And I think my favorite parts of this were the kind of cultural differences between black people. I mean, who knows? Like, now, I don't know, African American is kind of a weird term now. I would say people I've talked to prefer just the term black. But let's say Americans, so like Black Americans, have kind of a unique relationship with people born in Africa, with Africans. And they have sort of this, like, kinship, obviously, but then also, like, there's a weird rift. because it's like, well, I don't know, it's very unique, and I thought they touched upon some of that stuff a lot, which I liked, and it was definitely very interesting, but it's just, I don't know, and weird critiques with it. I sometimes the CGI felt super fake to me, and it really stood out. And like, I get that like Marvel has as much more money than any one studio Disney needs to ever have. So I get you can just do CGI for all that, but it's like when you use real lighting on real costumes, like that makes a big difference. And I don't know, just like the waterfall scene with the fights, like that was okay, but like all that looked terrible to me. It all looked super fake. And it's like, you can just find a normal waterfall or just build a set that looks like a waterfall. You don't need all this weird blue screen stuff that I can clearly tell is blue screen, So it's like, there were like little things like that kind of bugged me. And then it was sort of paint by numbers. And I think that probably this studio and Disney were probably like, look, unlike with Thor Ragnarok, they probably didn't give it as much freedom because they were like, this is a new character. We kind of want you to do this formula, and I get that. But just as a film, it just kind of, I don't know, it just sort of fell flat for me.
It's just kind of, as you said, the basic formula.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a hero who has his conflict, resolves it, and then there's the climax. And that doesn't mean it's like a flop by any means, but
this was one of the most successful Marvel movies ever.
When that kind of surprised me as well, because, like I said, it wasn't like I fell in love with this movie, but just knowing that. Well, shoot, I kind of lost my train of thought. But I was kind of surprised at how much success it was. Yeah, there we go. Just because it was just kind of the basic formula, especially coming right off of Thor Ragnarok. And maybe they didn't want to try something really out on its own, being that it was his only time or his first time being in his own movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just kind of the basic formula that followed through, just kind of making it its own average movie, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that the main reason why it's so successful is because it catered to the black demographic.
Definitely.
And that's a huge market in America, obviously. And like the soundtrack's really good. Kendrick Lamar, had at least one great song on there. But like, and then it was nominated for Best Picture. I don't think it should have been. I don't think it was good enough to be. And it's hard because I don't want to sound, you're afraid. Well, some people might be afraid to sound racist by saying they don't like it, but it's just true. Like, it's not like I thought it was a bad movie. And like I said, Black Panther is one of my favorite characters. I just felt like they could have, as from a story point, they were in a tough position. And they just kind of played it safe, and that's fine. Like again, if this was like a Phase 1 movie, if this is comparable to the first Thor, we would have been like, this movie's awesome.
I was actually going to bring that up too. Yeah. I was thinking that maybe if we just haven't been this far along, and maybe even to say so spoiled in rich stories, that this would have not have felt so dull if it was earlier in the series.
I think that's right.
Yeah, and I just think maybe they just had to try to make it more traditional, just to not turn people off, and maybe
the next one they're gonna take more chances. Yeah.
Yep. But for this one, they might have just kind of played a little more safe, just made a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Just to not. Just to maybe even just try to gain more people as a Black Panther fan.
Yeah.
And I guess we can see where it goes from here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So then that brings us to the next one, which was Avengers Infinity War.
Yep.
So this one was, initially it was supposed to be a 2-part. It was supposed to be Infinity War Part 1 and then Infinity War Part 2. And then Disney came out and said, no, we're just going to do just one movie. And then, they ended up doing, we'll get to the next one later. Yeah. But this was, and I'm so glad they just did it as one part. When they announced they're going to do it as one part, I was like, thank God. Because doing it whenever one movie is split into Part 1 and Part 2, almost always the first one is, kind of meh, building up, and the second part is all payoff. So neither one is that satisfying as its own film. And so they just put it into one movie, and I was excited to hear that. So going into this, Thanos was the villain, and this was one that we first saw in the very first Avengers post-credit scene.
So long ago.
So long. So that was 2012,
yeah.
and this came out in 2017.
When this movie finally was coming out, I just thought, I can't believe I'm finally seeing Thanos in a movie. Because way back at that first initial tease at the end of the Avengers credits, the very first one, I just thought, like, man, am I ever going to see this movie?
Yeah.
You know, like, am I ever going to see him fighting? That's just years away.
Because, I mean, think, that was only 1 year removed from the Green Lantern movie, where the end credits was Sinestro getting the yellow ring.
Yeah, which we're still waiting on.
Which we're still waiting on. Yeah. And it was like, you know, with that one, I remember you saying, well, they set it up for a sequel, so they're going to do it. I was like, I don't think that's going to happen, Tyler. You're like, but they put it in the movie. I'm like, that doesn't mean they're going to do it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I just remember, again, getting back all my hype, because I just couldn't believe we're finally at the point in our lives that we're going to see Thanos. Yep. He's going to be in the movie and kicking ass, and I just couldn't wait for this movie to come out in theaters.
Yeah, and right before I saw it, I had rewatched Spider-Man Homecoming, so that was fresh in my mind. And, you know, I'll say that I really liked the movie. I didn't... I almost loved it, but I wasn't quite there. I love Thanos as a villain. I love that almost his... Excuse me. Sorry, guys. I had a couple beers before this. His introduction was him fighting the Hulk with just... Was it the Power Stone? Or was it without the Power Stone when he beat him? I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't quite recall.
But he embarrassed the Hulk.
Yeah.
And it was like Hulk was kind of our trump card or wild card. It was like, well, no matter what happens, Hulk's going to beat whoever it is. Mm-hmm. And Thanos just embarrassed him. And you're like, oh, shit. Yeah. That was such a great introduction to him.
Yeah, I almost think he had no stones, because I think I remember a part
pretty sure,
that he was nervous later on because he acquired 2 stones. And it started to dawn on Bruce that he might be getting tough to beat with 2 stones. Yeah. When he got his butt kicked with just no stones.
Yeah. It was that was a great introduction to him for all of us, just shorthand to be like, this guy is the real deal.
Yeah, he is strong on his own. So,
yes.
Yep.
And then like just seeing all the Infinity Stones pay off. Like years of just, oh, well, we're going to have a little Easter egg of this Infinity Stone and this Infinity Stone and this Infinity Stone.
Seeing an Infinity Stone every now and then in a movie was like, oh my gosh, that's an Infinity Stone.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they're all in one movie.
Yeah.
It's like, holy crap, these things are so powerful and they're all in one place. Yeah, I remember that.
I love, I'd say I really like this movie a lot. And one of the things... Was this the first time they all got back together after Civil War?
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, because they were all kind of split, and I guess you could even say that they were still kind of split in this movie.
Yeah.
But kind of working together again.
Yeah.
After their big rift that everyone had. So yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was cool to see too. But like. I saw somebody say, like, well, there's been a bunch of reports, but, like, or think pieces saying, like, well, they made Infinity War with Thanos being the main character of the story. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's actually 100% true. And it's great. Like, Thanos is a great villain because he's super powerful, but he's also, like, you understand where he's coming from. And, like, he thinks he's the good guy, obviously. And he's not just doing it to be bad. Like, he honestly thinks this is the right thing to do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes a lot of interesting plots.
Yeah.
When the bad guy just isn't bad, knows he's bad.
Which is what Marvel has always sucked with. That's been their one main complaint, is that their villains are just one note, just evil for no reason. Yep. And it's annoying. We see it all the time.
But Thanos, and even when he explains it, you can see his side. You can see why he thinks what he's doing is going to be the right answer.
Yeah.
And so you actually kind of hear him out a little bit, but obviously you still, don't believe that that's what can happen, but you can kind of see what he's talking about, where he's coming from. And I think that just makes it really interesting because you do, I don't know, get more attached, just thinking like, well, yeah, he's kind of right. I mean, maybe everyone together is destroying the planet or, causing poverty, but it's still just the system that needs to happen. He doesn't see that. That's why there's always the rift.
Yeah, because he's saying, well, the system you have isn't going to change anything. We have to do this.
Yeah.
It just it's the right thing to do. Like, it just has to happen. And the other thing that they kind of touch on, but not really, but in the comics, it's like, it's less like, I think they did it more relatably in the movie, was that he thinks it needs that balance, which, overpopulation is a real thing right now in the world. But he just says they need that balance. And like in the comics, he's just like obsessed with death, basically, and he loves death.
Yes.
Like that's just he just can't get enough of it. And he actually ends up in a relationship with the goddess of death for a while, which is Thor's sister. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I thought they did it in a more relatable way in the comics or in the movie rather. And it was like literally like, I just loved how it was like at the end. So, I mean, I guess we could have said this up top, but, kind of spoilers, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously.
It's a full review.
Yeah, so there's going to be spoilers in here. But when they're fighting him and Doctor Strange says, I just saw all the possible outcomes, and it's like 1 in 14 million or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And they're fighting him, and it looked straight out of a comic, like when Spidey has the gauntlet pulled off him a little bit, and they're fighting him down, and then fucking Star-Lord ruins it, the piece of shit.
I know.
That was so annoying. And
I
then
know.
Punches him. And,
I still felt like they could do that.
Done that better.
It's like, come on. You know that they could have him pull through,
yeah.
Since he's so strong. It's like, we don't need to hate Star-Lord for, losing his cool.
Yeah.
That is the one thing that I can remember off the top of my head right now, and I believe this is how I felt coming out of the theater, is that they just didn't need to have Star-Lord, cause basically the world, and Thanos could pull through on his own, and their plan could just not work, and then you don't have to hate someone, you don't have to put the blame on someone. Obviously, we don't hate Star-Lord, I don't
right,
think.
no.
Yeah, but it's like...
He did get more annoying after that, because then it was like, okay, maybe you are just like... don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of dumb, and it didn't really feel earned, But yeah, that was definitely the main complaint coming out of it. But, so they did that, and then they lost. Like, Thanos snapped his fingers, and half of the people died. And, like, I'll tell you what, like... So, Thor comes in with his new hammer and stabs him, and then he, like, does the time stone, reverses it, and it's like... It was a really great scene, and like when he snaps, like I felt that, like when he said, "Oh, I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark," like, whoo, that got me. I don't want to go. Like, oh, that hit hard. I was like,
very strong.
And they lost.
Yeah.
That was their big fight with Thanos that we've been building up for so long. Like, the first Avengers and all these Infinity Stones throughout these movies, we're finally seeing it come to a head. And they lose.
Yes.
And it pays off. It was worth it was like, oh my God, I cannot believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, thinking that he's super strong. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
And I was still remember thinking there was a chance, probably about 2 Infinity Stones, and then about the time like the 3rd and the 4th, the more I just kept thinking everyone's screwed.
Yeah, there's no way they can beat it.
Yeah, and there was times that he acquired the Time Stone. Then I remember his big fight with Vision, and then he just throws back time, and then grabs Vision and removes his stone. Like, there was times that in the movie theater, I remember, like, this isn't going to work.
Right. Like,
he's got the time stone.
Like, however they decided they're going to beat him is going to feel cheap and not earned.
Yeah.
Like,
Thinking back now, there wasn't, like, times that you'd say, well, he didn't have to go down there. He had the time stone. He could just do this. He was like, gave people maybe the hope, like, oh, they did this. No, he has the time stone. He was immune to that, and then, it got Vision's stone, and it just felt like they knew, they didn't cop out, is what I should say.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, Thanos got hurt and then had to flee or something.
To throw back to Thor: The Dark World for a minute, a big cop out in that movie was the Dark Elf's henchman dude, the big guy. Like, whenever you inhale the ether, you get these strong powers, whatever. And like, he inhaled the ether and he became this big bull monster thing. I don't know if you guys remember that, but there was a point where he's fighting him in the final act, and he throws Mjolnir at him, his hammer, which obviously only those who are worthy can hold it, whatever. And he just bounces off him like nothing. And like, okay, first of all, that's stupid. Like, he's not that strong. He can't just stop that, And then and then Thor beats him anyway. Like, it's just like, okay, well then it's the law of diminishing returns, because now you just undervalued Mjolnir, which you built up for so long.
Yeah.
And then they just beat him easily with when he can just deflect Mjolnir. It's like, that doesn't add up.
Yeah.
Like, I hate when movies do that.
Yeah. Throwing that back here for a second. Yeah, that movie did really downgrade Mjolnir.
Yeah, it did. I hated
because
it.
he was easily defeated in like every single case.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty dumb. And then destroyed and everything. So that did stink. But yeah, then backed into this movie. It just felt like, there wasn't, at least in my mind right now, like a cop-out reason for things ending. It just kept happening. Like, he was easily able to get out of it because he had the power of the stones.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the way they brought that together was masterful, and you felt it, and it was like, oh shit, like, like, it's a Marvel movie, so people might, you always think, well, they're just not gonna actually die, they're gonna come back, but I felt it. Yeah,
like I said, about 3 stones, I just kept feeling like we were more and more screwed. The more I watched it, I'm like, what do we do? Like, what happens? And all the way up to the end, when he collected them all and snapped his fingers, and the whole, kind of theater and the movie kind of gets quiet as everyone's dusting. It's like everyone in the theater is just like sitting thinking, what happens next?
Yeah.
Like, are these people actually gone? Like, I remember thinking, because every Marvel movie usually has a resolve. It's just like, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Like Civil War, the only thing, I love Civil War, and the only thing I would change is at the ending, when Cap leaves him a note or whatever, whenever you need me, just call or whatever, because then it's like, all right, well, you kind of just downplayed the whole conflict of the movie by throwing that in there, and I get why they did it, but it's like, okay, so there's no real stakes here if you just say, well, whenever you need me. But, like, so you're kind of expecting that moment at the very end. Like, they all go away, and you're just waiting for them to be like, oh, but they're not actually dead. But, no, it just ends.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it's just like Thanos on this planet, just looking peaceful, just like, I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember thinking at that moment, it's like, I have no idea what is happening in these movies next. I thought, are they just ending it now? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What are we going to see next?
Thought.
Yeah.
And that led us into, I believe it was Ant-Man and the Wasp. So, again, if you want to hear thoughts on the first Ant-Man, go back and listen to that first episode. I have not yet, to this date, seen this film. I didn't have much interest in seeing it. I know I saw it, and I was like, the previews for it, and I was like, yeah, I'll probably see it. It looks like just kind of a fun whatever movie. But then I just never got around to seeing it. And I never heard, like, probably anything about it. So I was like, I don't know. Like, not even, like, I literally didn't hear anything about it. So unfortunately, I just never saw it. So you have seen this film.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
again, saw it when it came out on DVD again. Didn't go to theaters. I think probably pretty much everyone felt this way. Especially that, this is the one that followed up Infinity War. People are, well, it might not even be wrong to say that people are still processing Infinity War and what's going to happen next. This movie, at least in the timeline right now, coming in between the two movies, or well, I guess there was another movie in between, but this movie's probably going to be the number one throwaway at the moment until maybe people are rewatching these movies. And I think a lot of people have kind of touched on it as well. That, this movie just was kind of, again, maybe with Black Panther, it was just kind of a superhero movie. It happens right before the snap, if you don't know. And I guess it won't be even too hard to even just be spoiler free with this, just to not ruin it with you, and just because it's not that hard, just because it's just another superhero movie, the conflict, the resolve, things like that. I at least just like Ant-Man. There's a lot of people that aren't on board with Ant-Man, and I feel like they could have done something maybe in this movie to get more Ant-Man fans, but they really didn't. And so it was just kind of another superhero movie where it's not bad, but it doesn't do anything to, I guess, even like make people want to go see it in the theater.
How does it compare with the first Ant-Man movie?
Well, I'd say that, and I don't know, I think it's because it was the first time seeing Ant-Man, that the first is better. I was just really excited to see Ant-Man and how everything played out. This one was just basically another, version of the first movie, and so it's like you've already seen it. Sure, they start introducing the Wasp and things like that. So, but she didn't have too much screen time. Thinking back,
even though her name's in the title.
I know, yeah. It was just basically introducing her as a person. And again, like I said, it's not like it's just a bad movie. In fact, recalling some things, it's like they just knew, shrinking technology more and what to do. It was fun to see them mobilize, I guess you could say. They had like a whole research facility that they would always shrink and bring to wherever they want. So it was just kind of fun to see what they've done, what they, just their everyday life is just shrinking and regrowing things. So it is kind of fun. But being that it was also right before the snap, he was on Captain America's side. And so he was locked away in that movie back in Civil War, and so also the whole time, Peter Pym, Pym, I believe is his name. Hank Pym. Yep. He and the Wasp, I can't remember her name, but they're just mad at him the whole time. So I could have also done without that.
That's annoying.
I don't know.
So they were on Iron Man's side?
Well, they were just mad that they didn't consult with each other. Ant-Man just went.
So they were mad that he just got involved.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of having some of my movie amnesia, but I believe they were kind of working on projects, and then he was just gone. And left everything. I mean, he even still had the suit, and so they were mad. I don't know. I just always hate when there's all this conflict throughout the whole movie.
For no reason.
It's like they're working together still, but they're still got beef. It's like, all right, let's all put our differences aside and work together. But I think when you maybe after we give it a little time here, people are going to rewatch movies. They'll watch the first Ant-Man, be like, oh, I want to watch the second Ant-Man. And they're just going to get the superhero movies. If it's not stacked up compared to, again, what this came off of, the Avengers, Infinity War, then it's, I mean, obviously compared to that, it just doesn't hold any hype compared to that. But it's not a bad movie.
That's probably why they placed it where they did, because they were like, this movie isn't going to make as much as any of the other movies we've had anyway. Mm-hmm. So we might as well put it, because, like, who's going to follow Infinity War? You know, who's going to follow Thanos? Like, well, it might as well be this one. So they probably kind of buried it. Is this the one where he uses, like, a flatbed truck as, like, a skateboard? Like a kneeboard thing?
Oh, yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I remember that. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, and actually, and he was big-sized. And Superman-sized. And I remember that scene now. But yeah, fun movie. Just
was the villain better than the first one?
Villain, I'd say so. I didn't actually really like the villain in the first one.
I didn't either.
Yeah, because again, he was just kind of a dick.
Yeah, for no reason.
Yeah. This one, they were dealing with people trying to steal all their research. At the same time, and this is, I guess, kind of the spoiler, their end goal. I did like their end goal, which I won't really talk about, and their resolve. I was all happy at the end.
Okay.
But I just felt like there was so much stuff in between, like banter and stuff, that just, it's like, let's just move on. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I'd still say it's, worth a watch. Just
and
not
Paul Rudd's a superstar.
Yeah,
so.
And if it didn't have Paul Rudd, maybe I wouldn't be as much on board, because I'm a huge Paul Rudd fan.
Yeah,
but it's just a movie to not set your bar high to.
Yeah,
and I guess if you just don't set your bar high, then it's just going to succeed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can throw it on probably in an afternoon and just watch in the background.
Yeah, it's just and that's what we did, I guess. One day we had nothing going on, we popped the movie in, because it even sat on my shelf for probably, this one came out a while ago, and I only watched it like just slightly before Avengers Endgame, and so it probably sat on my shelf for like 5 months or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just not. It just doesn't like bring you to watch it, but it's just something to watch if you want to sit down and watch a movie.
Like Ant-Man in the comics, I fucking hated. He was a terrible character. Couldn't stand him. Just because he was just like, I'm a pacifist. I don't want to fight. I'm just a scientist. Why am I I don't want to fight. I'm just gonna get big and small. I don't even what am I even do. I hated him. I hated him.
It probably helps here just being that he's just a goofball.
Exactly. Yeah. They did so much better with him. And like in the comics, like what I'm referring to is Hank Pym. So like they made it the second generation Scott Lang. So they already were a little bit like, even if Hank Pym was like, whatever. That was a long time ago. And they made him just kind of a goofball. And that fits so much better with the character, because it is ridiculous. Like, what, you just get super tiny or super big, and you're just like, it makes so much more sense just literally, like you said, just have him be a goofball.
Yeah, so, it definitely does.
I'll probably see this at some point, as a completionist, but...
something that, again, I think the Marvel movies do well is that I think, like, well, and obviously most movies are going to try to do this as well, but I guess some people rely on just cop-outs, is that you think, well, shoot, I mean, if he can shrink to the size of, just a grain of rice, how is he not just going to... beat everything every time? Like, no one can see him, right? But they still put him in situations where it's like, oh crap, he could be busted, and you actually feel it. It's not like they just can all of a sudden sense tiny little beings or something like that. Yeah. And so I do feel like the conflict
it's gotten
between
better.
Villains is still like, he just can't walk around and do whatever he wants when he's small. People are still going to see him, and they just put him in situations where I do believe, like, he's going to be in trouble.
Yeah. So, and definitely, like, there was more of those cop-outs and just, like, not as well thought-out things in the first few in Phase 1. But I feel like slowly they've gotten away from that, which is refreshing. So then after this one was Captain Marvel. So this was also one that I did not see.
Okay.
And this was just because, like, I'm a big Brie Larson fan. I love Brie Larson. She has my namesake. I like Captain Marvel fine in the comics. She's a fine character, like a little bit OP'd sometimes.
Oh yeah.
You know, so like I knew that was gonna happen. But what I really liked was that it could inspire the Skrull invasion, which I don't know if they're gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
But the Scree is something like that, and the Krull, I think Krull, and there's another one that starts with an S.
Okay.
But like that's an interesting storyline in the comics because then they. She kind of brings them along, and like whatever, and then they like can mimic whoever, so they just sort of like take over by impersonating people and whatever. It's just kind of an interesting, and I was like, okay, I always like that because it's a little bit brings in a little bit more espionage and who can you trust, and you know, which like maybe won't translate into movies. But, so this was one I was like, I'm probably going to see that. But then reviews were kind of mixed when it came out. So I was like, well, you know, maybe I just won't see it. I just didn't feel like going to it.
Yeah, that's exactly actually why I stayed away from it a little bit too, until it was the week before the Avengers came out. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to finally go see it. Because it was really weird when people were, I guess, reviewing it or something, and I guess I don't look at reviews too much, but even just like some of the stars in the movie talking about it, it was such, and there's these points that I just don't, in my mind, they're just not a thing, and so it's annoying to see it. But people were talking about like, oh, people aren't seeing this movie because it's got a strong female role in it, and I'm just like, who is saying these things?
Yeah.
And so it was things like that, which is why right initially I was just like, I don't know who's saying these things. It just sounds made up. Like, like maybe there is, and obviously in the age of the internet.
Oh yeah, and there's alt-right people who just won't see it.
But the percentage has
got
to
be like
so
2%,
small.
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a day and age that I'm pretty sure almost maybe even like 99% of people don't say like female. I don't think I'm going to see that.
There's no way I'm going to go watch this movie.
And so when I saw people talking about that, I'm like, who is saying these things? Like, but I just think like, because they were saying, I think it was underperforming what they thought, and and so right away I saw people saying, oh, it's because people don't want to see a female role. It's like, who are saying these things?
Look, one of the most successful movies, especially domestically, of all time, you know what it was? Star Wars Episode 7, A Force Awakens. That has a strong female lead in it. Mm-hmm. So shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
it happens all the time, especially in today's day and age. That's what people want to see.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't... like, when I see the movie... well, at least I never used to, but it almost just happens automatically now. I just... It like has to process in my mind now, which it never used to, female lead. Like, you don't have to... I've never used to put labels on it. I'm never like, okay, this is a female superhero. I better go watch it, or things like that. It's just like, okay, here's the new superhero. Well, you know, it's just like I just hate when gender has to be had to be tied to things, and so that's why I was pulled back on the movie just a little bit, because again, I saw people just talking about that, and we can move on because it's annoying even here. But it's like, I don't know who's not seeing the movie because it's a female. Like, there's got to be other reasons.
All right, you know, I hope I don't lose listeners for this, but saying I don't care. I'd consider myself a feminist. I do. And when I saw Wonder Woman, I loved it. Like, have you seen it?
No, I actually haven't.
So Wonder Woman is a great film. I loved it. You own it, haven't seen it. It's great. And like, one of the things I loved about it was it had so many chances to be like, I'm a girl and I can do things better than boys can, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Like, it was just about her being this strong character and being who she was as a person, not as a female.
Yes.
You know, and not as not a male, just as a person.
Yes.
And it's just a strong character, and I love that about it. And, like, when I was talking to, hey, shout out, Justine, loyal listener out there, she told me that's also what she loved about Wonder Woman, but that's what she didn't like about Captain Marvel, was she said it felt a little too rah-rah, a little too, hey, we're girl power, and a little too, like, pandering a little bit, you know, and I haven't seen it, but when I heard those, I was like, man, that's like that was like my favorite thing about Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, all right, maybe I'll just put this on the back burner.
That's a perfect transition into this, because I did finally see it when, you know, the articles were finally done. So everything was kind of flushed out of my head at that point on just people saying, like, you know, boys versus girls crap that I swear doesn't exist, except for maybe for 1% of the population. But,
at least not like actively. I believe it's definitely there subconsciously. Yeah. I think there's definitely people out there who just subconsciously see a superhero movie led by a female, and they, like, without realizing it, are just like, I don't want to see that. I don't think people are going out of their way to say out loud, I'm not going to see that because it's female led. I do think that it probably underperformed partly because of that, maybe.
Yes.
But I do think that it's more subconscious than conscious for most people.
Yeah. It's probably got some of that going with it, but I do think that a good movie is going to be a good movie no matter what.
That's the best argument ever.
Yep. And so when I did go see it, all that stuff finally flushed out of my head, and it was a little like girl power, which it's like, we know Captain Marvel, like you said, is OP at times. Yeah. Like, Captain Marvel,
her character.
It doesn't need to, like,
there was OP stands for overpowered.
Yep. If you're all not aware, but there were moments in the movie where it's like, you're a girl, you can't do this, and then it's like, yes, I can, and she does. It's like, yeah, because we know that Captain Marvel is strong. Like, we don't really need, like, you getting pushed in the dirt saying you're a woman, which it had in it. It literally had that in it. It's like, we just know. And so it was those moments that did take me out of the movie. It's a small percentage of the movie that it does have, like, I'm a girl, I can do anything, and so that does help it out. I'll tell you that. But it's when it does do that, I mean, it stains it in your mind. Like, and so that's what's sticking with you. Well, I guess I think the main part of it was right in the middle where they just kind of had that moment. Otherwise, like, it was a fun movie, especially with Nick Fury in it. He was
an eye patchless Nick Fury, right?
Younger. Yep, Yeah, and otherwise there were parts of the movie that I really liked. And right off the bat, it didn't, hit you with it. And so I had a lot of fun with it, especially because it's in the past, as we just kind of said there. And the way they dated their movie was really fun, with a bunch of stores that are out of business right now. And so it was just really fun to kind of touch on that stuff. It kind of hit like the girl power stuff, and that was just, annoying. It wasn't needed.
Wasn't necessary.
Yeah. If it's like, if you say like, Wonder Woman is, I'm a strong woman without
just a strong person,
without them writing it on like a note and showing it to your face. That's great. I mean,
there's
know
literally a moment in there, and this isn't a spoiler, where they're in the trenches of World War I, and she's like, well, let's go over there. Let's walk across this battlefield. And he was like, no, that's no man's land. Like, you can't go out there. That's what it was called, just for all you historians out there. He said, no, that's no man's land. You can't go out there. It means no man can walk out there. And so in your head, you're doing the math, right? And you're like, all right, well, this is the time where she says, well, I'm no man, or that's because I'm a woman. She doesn't say anything. She's just like, I'm just gonna go over there, and just does it.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was like the movie being like the perfect setup for a really dumb girl power, over the top, stupid line, and I would have forgave the movie for it, but it didn't do it. It didn't, because it was like, no, this is the right thing to do. I'm just a strong character.
Yeah, and it's just not needed.
And it's not needed. You don't need to say it. You just know it.
Yeah. And so that's just kind of parts of people's issues with this. And so when people talk about it, then you become the sexist or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just like, think about, let's just say, an Iron Man movie where Iron Man seriously, and not like jokingly, would be like, oh, I can beat this guy because I'm a man and I have manpower. It's like that,
yeah,
we know.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's like, why, you don't need to say
Yeah,
that.
Iron Man
like,
doesn't.
Why did you, that shouldn't ever be a thing you should hear.
Iron Man's just cocky about himself just in general, but as like the joke, it's not like, seriously, I'm awesome.
I'm awesome because I'm a man.
Yeah,
like, it doesn't say that.
It's just not needed.
It's not needed. That's a great point.
Yeah, so just setting like that stuff aside, like the other parts of the movie, I did think were fun as well. Except for maybe even towards the end and keeping it also a little spoiler free. She was like kind of discovering what her powers were throughout the movie. And then this is the part that I didn't like. Then it's just like at the end, she had like 100. Oh yes, she had 100% of her powers, and like could use them. There was like a couple hiccups in her powers, but like went from like okay to just like an insane badass. Like I thought like. Where was the transition in that? Like, I felt like she should have a little bit more build up on her power. It just went from like 40% to 200%.
Wow.
Like just in the end of the movie. Otherwise, I had fun with the rest of the movie. I just think that her powers should have came to her, or she should have been more aware of her powers more gradually than at the end.
Yeah.
Then
spend more time. Yeah. Grappling with it, figuring out how to use them.
Because it was like she just knew how to fly. She knew all of her powers just right at the end. It's like, okay, we could have slowed that into it.
I mean,
but
Danny Phantom couldn't do energy blasts until season 2. We went through a whole first season where all he could do was disappear and go through walls.
Yeah, definitely. For all you Danny Phantom fans out there.
It's for you.
Which he's going to be in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
But one last thing I wanted to say before we move on is that I do think this is something that needs to be said. Well, maybe it doesn't need to be said, but I'm going to say it, is that representation is important. So, like, it just is. In popular culture, in movies and TV, for kids to see someone like them in a starring role or be a normal person, like, that's extremely important. And so I think for little girls to see a woman being in that powerful position, just being a powerful person, is important. Now, I don't want them to be pandering like that. Like, that's why one of the reasons why I loved Wonder Woman so much. But I'll just say, like, and also minorities, like Crazy Rich Asians was probably a great movie for young Asian kids growing up to watch, because you don't want to just be a side character that's just made fun of or is just a clown. Like, I'll say, growing up for me, I'm a I'm a straight white male, so I the world's made for me. But like, I'll say that I'm a bigger guy. I've always been a bigger guy, and big people don't have. And I don't know. You could say this better than most. I've never been like I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I've just been a big guy. I wouldn't say I'm like obese or I'm super fat or anything. I've just always been a big guy. It's just how it's always been. It's who I am. Anyway, for me, like, I'm not a minority. I'm not a woman. But for me, the representation were big people, because I would see stars of these movies. Well, they don't look like me. They're a dude with no hair on his body that's got a six-pack. That's not me.
Yeah.
And, like, growing up, you'd see the fat guy is just the clown. Like, he's just the guy everybody makes fun of. and he never gets the girl. He's just the butt of the joke of everything, right? And like when I was a kid, Tommy Boy was an important movie for me because he did get the girl, and he was the hero, and he was a great character. Now, in that movie, they make fun of him for being fat almost exclusively, which is annoying now, you know. But I'll say, like, over the weekend, I saw Booksmart, this new movie, very small. Olivia Wilde directed it, and she did a phenomenal job as her first film, her directorial debut. Didn't have any marketing at all, barely, because I never heard anything about it. But like I saw some on Twitter, just people tweeting about it, and I was like, I'm gonna go see it. And so I saw it. I really liked it. Dare I say I loved it. And so I went again that weekend and brought a friend. So I gave her 3 tickets that weekend, which is cool, I think. But one of my favorite things about that movie was the main character. She's a girl and is a little hefty, just like a little bit on the bigger side. And literally not one time did anyone make fun of her for being fat or even bring up that she was chubby. And I just loved it. Like, I mean, literally, like, that could not have meant more to me as just a person. Because it's like, I've always wanted that. I've always wanted, like, a bigger character to be the main character and just be a normal person and not have to be like, oh, I'm fat, or like, oh, look at you, fatty. Just, they didn't mention it. Like, literally, there were characters like, yeah, she's cute, but she's just too smart. Like, literally, didn't have anything to do with her being big, and it literally meant the world to me.
Yeah.
And that's just, like, you don't think that's a big thing, but it is. So, like, I will say, like, representation is super important, you know? Mm-hmm. And so it's good that we're getting these strong female characters, but I wouldn't want that character to be like, oh, I can do this better than you because I'm fat and I can do it, you know? Like, yeah. I didn't need that. It meant more to me that was never brought up, you know?
I think that's something important to say. And so we can just kind of wrap it up. Obviously, we can say that, you know, every woman has probably had people say, you can't do that because you're a woman.
Like, let your brother do it, or, we need, like, this light bulb changed. Go grab your dad. Like, little things like that,
I mean, that's just probably pretty much what high school is. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously, people go hard on women, but people also go hard, as you say, on fat people, on... you know, the band kids people just go hard on everything.
Right.
And so that's why I also do think, I mean, everyone, maybe some more than others have gotten picked on for something, but it's like, that's why it would just feel good to have a movie be like, yeah, this person's just a badass because they're a badass because a woman can do a thing a man can do. Or because a fat person can get the girl without being the fat guy, or the, I don't know. I mean, we like, again, all the way down. A band kid could be a band kid and still be a main character without it being like, oh, that's the band kid. He can't be cool. You know, like,
right? Exactly.
It's just nice. I mean, it's like, yeah, it might be in people's minds or something like that, but if a person's a badass, it doesn't matter if it's a female or male.
Exactly.
You know, a badass can be a badass, and without it just being pointed out. I just think the movie just didn't need to point out that she was a badass. We all knew. It would have been a better movie, in my opinion, without it.
Just show that she's a badass. You don't got to tell us about it.
Yeah, definitely. So...
But you know who is a badass is Thanos.
Yeah, Thanos.
Coming up again, round 2. So that brings us right into Avengers Endgame. So this was one that I will say I wasn't super hyped to see. So like Infinity War, I wasn't that hyped to see either. Like I think that we've just seen so many Marvel movies. Mm-hmm. We've just been through the ringer, you know? It was like Thor Ragnarok was one that relit the fire, and then like Black Panther came out, and you're like, okay, like it was like we're back to the formula. So it's like, well, if they're not doing interesting things or reinventing the wheel, like you're just kind of, I guess I'll see it. So this one came out, and I really liked it. I liked Infinity War a lot, you know, and it did kind of re-spark that. So then Endgame is kind of a similar thing, like. all right, like I'll see another Avengers movie. Like,
isn't that funny? I do want to talk before we get too deep into this. Like phase 1 of Marvel, we were excited.
We could not wait
for any movie. And then apparently, we must have gotten spoiled because it was just like, oh yeah, like I didn't even know the date until like it was 2 weeks out.
Yeah, same. Me too.
Yeah, and it was like, holy crap, this movie's coming out. Where like the first Avengers, it was probably on my calendar.
Yeah,
like, and we were counting down like a whole year, probably being like, oh,
you can go back and hear that first episode, but when Captain America, the first Avenger, got done and those end credits, we were so excited. Mm-hmm. We were like, oh, I cannot believe they're going to take all these movies and make this one. Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yep. Yeah. And then I guess we just got a little bit spoiled along the line, and it was just like, oh yeah, the Endgame comes out in 2 weeks. Wow, I should
probably go see that.
I should make sure that weekend's open or something. You know, like originally it was like, I'm going to make sure a whole year in advance that nothing is on that date. It's kind of funny to think the movies got better, as we kind of stated. Yeah. And we were less excited to see them.
Every time.
That's weird.
Yeah. And so this was one that some trailers came out. I didn't watch them because I try to stay, because it's like, I know I'm going to see it. I don't want to watch trailers for it. I don't need anything spoiled. But I was kind of like, well, here we go again. Like, this is going to be another Marvel. Like, I was like, I liked Infinity War a lot, and one of the things I loved about the most was that ending that we talked about, that they were just like, we killed these people off, and it was like, boom. And I was like, I'd be fun if the MCU ended here on a cliffhanger. You know, that'd be great. Like, I was like, that'd be cool. But then I'm like, all right, they're going to do another one. It's probably going to be another big summer thing. And they're just going to find some stupid cop-out reason to bring these people back or make sure it never happened. And they're probably just going to say one line in the first 10 minutes, and then we're just going to be back to the same thing. And, like, you know, so I was like, well, I'll go see it, but I'm not, like, that excited to see it. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts?
So, yeah, as I kind of stated, just, you know, completely wasn't even keeping track of it when it was going to come out. And it's probably better. I think us included and a few other people just aren't watching trailers too much anymore because we want everything to be fresh. I wish trailers were more like the first, I should say,
like a teaser.
Yeah, like episode 7 of Star Wars. It's like I can watch that trailer 30 times, and I don't know what this movie's going to be about.
Star Wars does a great job with that.
I wish that more trailers were like that, just so I saw it, the scenes look cool, and I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, but I don't even want to take that risk with a lot of them anymore because I'm afraid I'll see like a final fight scene.
Right. And it's like that's just happened too many times. And a lot of times now it's like I'll just watch like just the teaser and I won't watch any more. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But like one of the things I think you and I, for sure, I'll speak for myself, I got burned on hard was when we saw Man of Steel. So that was like the first summer Old Legs and I started talking movies. You were a witness to that, so you were there. And that was the first movie that we all saw. We went down to Omaha. We made a big trip about it. We were going to go see Man of Steel. And we watched those trailers, and like those were great trailers. I remember the third trailer was like almost 3 minutes long, and it was like, oh my God, this looks so amazing. Like, look at these visuals, and like, oh, it just like, it looks so amazing. We could not wait. And we were like, we got to go see this in IMAX. And we went to see it, and it was like, oh, okay, like, like it just, we saw all the cool parts that we saw in the trailers with less character development in between. And it was like, it was kind of fell flat. And it's like, there've been so many examples of that it's just,
I remember the last big one in my mind, which it's at least a movie that, well, I guess I could probably get away with this because they're just dumb movies, is the Fast and Furious movies. Which I know you love.
I cannot.
And they all are like the same thing, so I don't even know which movie this was for. But I just remember watching the trailer for it and literally watching the end scene where they build suspense and be like, oh, are they going to make it out? And then they bust through. And they literally showed that in the trailer. And so when the scene was happening, I'm like, okay, I know they're gonna bust through.
Yeah.
Like, why are you building
seen it.
suspense? I've already seen it. And so that was the first, I think, trailer that I can really recall that I'm like, God, I should stop watching trailers because I've seen this scene.
Yeah.
Like, this big scene in the movie, I've already seen it. I know that they're going to get out. Like, and again, with the other guys that I watched that movie with, I brought up that point and they didn't care. And so I don't know if it's just, I mean, it's Fast and Furious are supposed to be, dumb movies that you just watch because it's an action
flicks.
movie. Yeah. And so it's like, am I in the wrong crowd? Because like I had no suspense for that moment, but everyone else is like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
I
well.
don't know. They were building up a point where it's like, are they going to get out?
Right.
And they obviously
We
were,
already knew they were going to.
So yeah, that was about the turning point for me, where it's like, I should just maybe not watch trailers.
It's happened to me a lot of times. I think part of it was me watching, like, literally there was a point in my life where I was watching 10 hours a day of just movie-related content on YouTube, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was like, it was just stupid, and it was like, I was starting to develop, I've talked about this before in the pod, but it's like I was starting to develop groupthink with these shows, and then like you just start, it's like I couldn't, like watching a movie was almost an afterthought, because like, well, they already told me what to think and what I feel about it, for the last like year and a half, even before it came out, and then they saw it a month and a half before I did, and already told me what they thought, so I just went in knowing what I'm going to think, because they already told me, And, like, part of that has to do with trailers. When trailers come out, people are like, oh, this looks great, or this. It's like, so, one of the movies I'm most excited to see this summer is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's a new Quentin Tarantino movie. And all I know is that it stars Leo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. And it takes place in the late 60s, early 70s. And it has something to do with the Manson family murder, sort of. And that's about it. That's literally all I know. So, like, I watched the first teaser for it, or the first trailer, which didn't tell you anything about the plot, and I loved it. Absolutely perfect. It gave me the tone, and I was like, I loved it. I'm never going to see anything else for it, because, and I'm trying not to set my expectations too high, but it's like, literally, like, this, I'm just excited. I'm trying to keep my expectation level of, like, this is Quentin Tarantino, maybe my favorite director. He's got a new movie coming out, which isn't going to happen forever. Like, he said he's only going to make 10 movies, and this is his 9th movie. But, like, I kind of doubt that. I think he'll keep going. But, like, so I know there's a finite number on it, right? So it's like, it's set in a time period that I love, that I absolutely love, I can't get enough of. And it's like, and it's just, like, a cool-ish sort of story, and I love Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt have worked with Tarantino in the past, and they've done such good work that it's like, I'm just excited just for that aspect, just to be able to go to a theater, see a Tarantino movie with great actors in a time period that I love, and that's like that's all I want.
Yeah, you know what you need to know.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
sold, and you don't need to see a bunch of scenes from the movie to go see it.
Because the more plot points I see, the more conclusions I'm going to draw in my head, and the more math I'm going to be doing when I'm watching the movie. And then if it doesn't work out the way I think it's going to work out in my head, I'm not going to like it as much. And I don't want that to happen, And so, for all you guys listening out there, it's a real therapeutic thing. You should really cut back on it, especially when like, it's different if you're not sure if you want to see it.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think if like, these Avengers movies, we're gonna see them. Like, they have our money.
Yeah,
like,
my ticket was sold. Yeah, with just saying that it's coming out.
Yeah.
Like, and so I don't need to see a trailer to do it. So I'm perfectly fine with avoiding it at all cost if I can, because I don't need the trailer to sell me the ticket. That's one thing about it. But other trailers, that I'm not sure about, I just hope that if I am interested and I need to see a trailer, to see what it's about, that I don't see scenes from the movie. I just wish more people would cut back on that.
Yeah, me too. So one thing that I bring up all the time, there's this movie also in 2013 called 47 Ronin, starring Keanu Reeves. Have you seen it?
No, I just know it. That's
So it's a samurai type movie. Ronin is former samurai. Well, was apprenticed to a samurai but doesn't have a master. So he's sort of a samurai without a master. It's whatever. Anyway, there was a trailer where he's fighting. I can literally find it on YouTube, I'm sure, but he's fighting like the spirit guy, and the spirit guy says like, "It will cost you your life or your soul," or something like that. And it's a close one. It's a tight one on Keanu's face, and he says, "Then take it if you can." And they start fighting, and it's like, that's such a great, dumb, badass Keanu line. "Then take it if you can." And so, like, literally, that was the reason I went to see this movie. I paid full price to see it, and it was a terrible movie. And that line isn't in the movie. That scene isn't in the movie. Like, they fight, but he doesn't say the line. And it was, like, literally one of the most disappointing moments of my life. It's like, that's the only reason I went to see this, and it's not in there. The goddamn trailer got me.
That's all you needed was the trailer.
I know, just the one dumb line. If they would have kept it in the movie, it would have been so much better.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that brings us to Avengers Endgame. And so I'll just start us off here. Going into it, I was like, I'm kind of like, Avengers, I'm kind of done, I think. Like, I'll see it. I think they're going to cop out. I walked away from it loving Endgame. I absolutely loved it. And I saw a lot of people thought it was okay, or like, yeah, they liked it but didn't love it. I'll go out there and say I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And like we'll get into everything we loved about it, I'm sure, but I think one of the first things that made me love it, the first step was that they treated the Thanos snap so seriously, and they gave it the respect that it deserved. And it took a good half of the movie to kind of come back from that, and we'll get into all this more, but just like them dealing with that loss, and them dealing with a loss is like a big deal, and just there were so many themes of dealing with loss. It works on so many levels. But what were your thoughts coming out of it?
Yeah, so just wanted to touch on that. I pretty much had my hype down the whole before the movie, but like right before it came out, I was like, holy crap, I can't wait to see this movie. Yeah, and so my hype, but I guess maybe I've just been good at slowing down my hype, and so it was only like a couple days before the movie, I'm like, okay, here we go. This is the moment that we've all been waiting for ever since we started this stuff. And so I got pretty hyped up right before the movie, and just started to try to even think about like what would happen, which nothing I thought of happened, which I think was also fun.
Okay,
but so watching the movie, obviously, as well, me being such a huge Marvel fan, just because I think they've all been really fun, felt rewarded, if anything, too, from sticking with it for all these years, like 10 plus years. It just felt great to watch all the way to the end.
Yeah, it felt like a satisfying conclusion to everything, and it was like all the characters we've built towards this for so many years. It was like, and it gave everybody, like all our favorites, these, I think a lot of them, great endings, and it just felt like such a satisfying conclusion. It's 3 hours long, and it could have been longer for my money. Like they really could have done more stuff, but
because if they even had like a slightly bad ending, this movie, all these years, people would be furious.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so I think everyone was at least satisfied. I thought it was a lot greater than what everyone was saying too.
Same, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, I didn't even understand, and so I wondered, like, are people jumping in halfway through, and are these? I
could be,
because I'm like, I feel so rewarded after all this
on everything, every storyline. Yeah.
So then I don't know, and who knows? I could be wrong too. But I just started thinking, I'm like, did they only start watching about 3 years ago?
It could be,
because I feel like I'm on top of the moon right now.
Right. But it was like I couldn't have thought, like you said, I couldn't have thought of a better way to end all these things.
Yes, yeah.
And like, I don't know, I think part of it might be that like, it's a similar thing with when Civil War came out. I was super hyped for Civil War, and I loved Civil War.
Same, yep.
And I think, and a lot of people came away from it like, yeah, it was good, but it wasn't what I'm like, I don't understand that, because I absolutely loved it. My only gripe is that ending that I mentioned. I don't like that he was like, oh, if we ever need me, whatever. But it's like, I think part of that is because the Russo brothers take this stuff so seriously. Like, if you talk to those guys, and they were, originally comedy directors, but like, if you talk to like the actors, like when they're giving us tips, they're like, so this motherfucker over here, and he's like, he just took your fucking heart out. Like, they're so into it, like literally cussing. That's almost a direct quote from what I've heard. But it's like, and they started out with Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which is one of my favorite Marvel movies. That's not a hot take. It was before Ragnarok came out. I don't know where it all ranks now. I have to redo a list now, I guess. But like, that was their first movie, and they called it on the set 3 days of Captain America, like 3 days of the Condor, meaning we're making a 70s spy thriller, but with Captain America. And they took it seriously and put in that genre. And I think ever since then, they've treated it with such respect. Now, I think Joss Whedon for the first Avengers was important, and it felt comic booky and light, But in the second one, it felt tired, and it was like, oh, we're just going to do the same thing again. And it was like, no, you got to grind it out. These characters mean something, and they hold weight to us, and you got to take it seriously, and you got to build these characters up. And I think the Russo brothers have done such a great job. And like, it's amazing that they can blend so many tones from different movies into one movie. Like, every character has their own distinct tone, and it sings through. Like, the little stuff with, and they're so collaborative, so they can do this. But like Thor, are we going to get into Endgame spoilers? We might as well.
Oh yeah,
like,
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, when they go in to find Thor at this new Asgard, like, I loved it. Like, Thor is just fat out of nowhere. Like, he doesn't know what to do, and he's just drinking himself silly, and like just drinking beer constantly, not doing anything, and he's just fat and down on his luck. And like, what's his name is there? The big rock
guy.
Yeah, I forget his name.
Sure.
Starts with a K, like Crunk or
I can't remember.
But like, that tone was Taika. It was Thor Ragnarok, just for those couple minutes. But it's just like consistently over and over and over. They really nailed the tone for all the characters.
Yeah, especially for that part. It's like Thor's down on his luck, and everyone's like sick of him being down on his luck, so they just keep making fun of him. It's like, all right, we gotta pick ourselves up, Thor. Like, come on, the world is at stake, or well, we're trying to get the world back,
and we already lost,
and so it's like, shut up, let's go. So I thought that was hilarious too, because it's just like, come on, Thor, pick yourself up,
please,
buddy, come on.
It took forever, and they respected that choice. Like, like Chris Hemsworth wanted to take the character in a new direction, and I love that they respected it, because it was like, they could have just been a one-off joke, and then it could have just gone away. Like we said, Advent Theater, like a lightning bolt could have hit, and he could have been back in shape.
Definitely.
We could have just forgot about it. But they played it out, and it actually helped better define the character, because at the beginning of this movie, they go off and they find Thanos and they kill him instantly. And it's not satisfying. And it's not supposed to be. And like, we're watching it like, oh, okay, well, he's just hanging out and that you kill him. Like, what the fuck? But then they find a way to time travel interdimensionally and whatever. But all that stuff is just, the way they did it, like, the only complaint I have, like I said to you, is this, that like, Tony Stark figured out time travel very quickly. Just like, oh, well, that's how you do it. Oh, okay. And they did have trial and error and stuff. So, like, they put a little bit of due diligence into it. And it's a 3-hour movie. So it's like, we don't really need time with him putting in a formula and not working, trying another one and not working. I get it. But just overall, like a few of my favorite things. I love Professor Hulk. I mean, obviously, Fat Thor is maybe my fucking favorite thing ever of all time. But Professor Hulk was great. Cool, interesting character reference, like in the comics. Love Professor Hulk. It's basically Bruce and Hulk mixed at the same time. Super interesting. So he's not like as smart as Banner, and also not as strong as regular Hulk either. So he's a very weird character. Because he's, like, that's why they were fucking up, because he's not quite as smart as Banner. But it's just interesting. I loved, and then like the ending. So I loved Cap's ending. He had the greatest ending of any character. It was just so perfect.
Yes.
Oh, and like knowing that Chris Evans like was kind of done and wanted out, like it was just such a perfect, beautiful ending for that character. Just got to live his life like finally, which he was never able to do.
Definitely.
And then pass the mantle on is awesome. And then Tony Stark like getting the Infinity Stones and then reversing it all and then him sacrificing himself. And like when Pepper Potts said, "You did it, like it's okay, you can rest now, we're safe," like whew, that hit me hard.
Yeah.
And it's like just such a, like he started the Avengers really with the first Iron Man, and then he was the one to bring us home, to finally, and just the themes of dealing with loss. So they literally got defeated by Thanos and they didn't know what to do. The world was over. They're like, I don't know what to do. There was that great scene with Hawkeye's family. It was phenomenal at the beginning.
Yeah,
it was
that's
such a great scene.
I wanted to bring that up too.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Just at the beginning, I felt like that had a great set of pace on what to expect in the movie. It was Hawkeye's family, all having fun, playing baseball, having a barbecue, and everyone in Hawkeye's family except for himself turned to dust. And it's like, oh my, this is.
And it was
what...
just like every time he turned around, they were gone. He's like, what happened? Where'd they go?
And it's just like, this is what we're watching.
Yeah.
You know, like, destruction already, like right off the bat. No, like easing into it. It's like you are on the roller coaster and it took off. You know, like I was fully on board, like, and the whole theater as well was just like silent, like, and you could just hear like, oh man, like it was a great way to start off the movie. And just the way it kept rolling the movie as well, just felt great. Then, as we kind of mentioned, them kind of trying to piece things together, figuring out that Thanos has snapped again. We were able to track it, go down and make a surprise visit to him, and realize that he snapped to destroy the stones. And so they eliminated him right off the bat because Thanos was probably feeling, really at ease and everything, really off of his game, and so they were able to wipe him out. And then you felt like,
because he didn't care. He was like, my job is done. I did what I came to do. That's it.
And so then at that moment in the theater, it's like, what do we do? Like I then thought again, like, what's gonna happen next? Like, okay, Thanos is gone. What do we do next? And so just like the whole pacing in the movie was great. And then what did happen next? We all
it was what moved the plot along was the rat touching Ant-Man's van to bring him back from the other dimension.
So Ant-Man comes back. Obviously that just had to happen. I was fine with that.
It was okay. It was like, well, the plot has to move.
Yeah,
it was definitely Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah,
but it was like, we could have done it better. You didn't need a rat to touch controls and bring him back, but whatever.
It wasn't like here nor there. Like, obviously Ant-Man needed to come back. That's just the way they did it. It was like, okay, Ant-Man's back. Started thinking like, what? I mean, is someone else playing?
Is it better than like just the more like, what would be better? Like just like some hacker kid is trying to hack into it, and it's like, well, how does he know this technology? It's fine.
I guess
works.
he came back 5 years after it happened, and
something like that.
So I guess it wasn't like right
away.
It wasn't
right away. Yeah. That's a good point.
So Ant-Man's into this universe now and realizing what's happened, and I really liked the 5 years later point because you could actually see people are gonna start trying to move on. There was a memorial set, because I just imagine the world just standing still, but obviously that's not going to happen, especially after 5 years. And so it's like, wow, there's a big memorial. People are like, this has happened. We're getting through it. Yeah, that was
It's not just like, oh, what do we do? Because they're 5 years past, so they're like getting back to their lives.
It's not like just like chaos has assumed on Earth. Like, I guess it should just be 50% of everything, so probably 50% of law enforcement and everything. So everything's still just kind of maintained. And I liked that, there was a memorial there and everything, so Scott Lang Ant-Man could run and look at the memorial and kind of piece himself together on what's happening, go visit his daughter, which hadn't been eliminated with the snap. Right. And so that kind of pushed the story forward there. And then after that, is that when we...
So that's when he goes to Avengers Tower to find the remaining Avengers, and then he tells them that he was in this quantum zone or whatever, and he's like, if we're in this quantum realm, is that what they called it? I don't remember.
Yeah, the quantum realm.
Okay. Yep. And he's like, at that point, space-time works differently, so if we get there, we could possibly travel through time like he did, and then they start working on that.
Yeah, and I guess so that is what you kind of learn about in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and so if that kind of seemed a little, out there, I guess you would have been brushed up on that and that. Not that they discovered time travel, but I
mean, honestly, the physics, even though they're ridiculous, they work out because it is like gravity has an effect on space and time, and so the more gravitational pull you have, the faster time goes or whatever. So like on a molecular level, the smaller down you are, the slower time is technically going to be. So like theoretically, even though it's weird, pseudo ridiculous science fiction, it is like based in like it's enough for movies for me to be like, okay, like maybe
you can make it work. Yeah. And so then at that point, then we're finding out about the smart Hulk, Professor Hulk. Yep. And that was fun. He had some comic relief. I think then we're starting to get in some like we can laugh at this movie a little bit now. I just liked, there was a part in Black Panther where they pulled out the "what are those" meme, like pointing at something. That was so cringy. That was awful. But in this movie, like Hulk is just like kind of dumb, and he's like dabbing
for little kids that wanted an autograph.
And it's like I can laugh at that.
Yeah,
like it's supposed to be cringy. Yep. Like it's not serious, and so it's like, oh gosh, that's cringy Hulk.
Like it's
but that's funny.
It's not like the movie is like, oh, look at how up to date we are. We know your lingo. It was like Hulk thinks that's the new thing to do.
Yeah, it's basically like, look how out of date Hulk is.
Exactly.
And so it was funny. So that was a good chuckle there as we're getting into having him. Start to maybe try to figure some of this stuff out. One more thing I did remember, another joke in that cafe that they were in is when the kids came up to Hulk as well to get the photo. And Ant-Man was like, hey, you want a photo with me? And the kids are like, oh, no, I don't. But
I don't.
But Professor Hulk is like, oh, no, yeah, come on, kids. You can get the photo. And he's like, no, I'm sorry. I didn't. I thought maybe you wanted a photo. You don't. Here you go. But Hulk's still like, no, come on, guys.
No,
he feels
right.
bad. Yeah. And then Ant-Man or Scott Lang is just like, just take the damn phone. Like, I don't want the photo. If you don't want the photo, it's like, just take the damn phone away. That was really fun. That had me laughing pretty well too. But yeah, so then we start moving into trying to find time travel, getting back to Iron Man, even though he's really moved on with his life. Yeah, that was kind of where it really did speed up.
Well, because he was like basically dead. He was, and I love that too, was when they left off in Infinity War, he was like just drifting out in space.
Yeah.
On a ship that didn't have any gas.
Yeah, I suppose we didn't touch on that.
Like when we ended Infinity War, it was like we only have enough to get there. Like there's not enough back, so he's literally starving to death and pretty much died. But
great acting.
Oh my god,
that's all I could think about.
God,
that. Like I not that I'm like too big of a movie critic anymore, but at that scene, I'm like, the way he's acting. And it's good that probably not other people think about this, because it was such a believable story, like that he was on the brink of death. Like he was playing it so well that I was like, is just amazing. So I'm glad that you
Yeah.
did bring that back up, because phenomenal acting in that part there. That was just great to see. But so then, after he came back, he started his own life again.
Yeah, years later, then he had a family, had a wife. Well, with wife, he had a kid.
He definitely moved on.
He did. He was done with it. He was like, "Look, we failed. I don't want to think about this anymore. Like, we messed up. I'm not gonna move on with my life." And his, like, you knew this was kind of like it felt like a setup with like the family and like to get you sucked in, so you felt more. But that kid was so cute, and you really felt for him. Like, she was such a cute kid and was just like so clearly his, and they had this, honestly, felt like a really real great relationship. And like the "I love you 3000."
Yeah,
was like,
some great jokes came out there as well with
man.
Iron Man being a dad. That was, I mean, with his cockiness or with his short attitude or whatever you want to call it, just perfect scenes as well. But they basically stop by, say, "Hey, I think you can figure out time travel." He says that's dumb, and then, as you kind of said, he's like, bloop, bloop, bloop. "Oh, yeah, I can."
Oh, here it is.
They definitely pushed the story
They
forward
did.
right there real fast.
Because they were having trouble doing time travel. It wasn't really working. They're like, "Can you just look at this?" And he's like, "You guys need to leave." Yeah. And he looked at it for 20 minutes. And he's like, "Oh, I figured it out."
Yeah, because they did really play up his family. It's great. He's great. That is the first time I thought, like, crap, Iron Man's in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, for the rest of the film, Iron Man's in trouble. But yeah, so he figures it out. There's a few more good jokes that landed really well there, and then Iron Man kind of joins back on the team as well. Moves back like to the Avengers station or whatever you want to call it, and starts working on the project as well.
And then they start traveling, because the thing is, they need the Infinity Stones, so they have to go back in time to get the Infinity Stones again so that they can have them, because the ones in the present day are destroyed, so they have to go back in time to find them all. And that turns into a really fun time travel movie all of a sudden in the middle of it. Like, super fun, going to movies that we have already seen, and like the back doors of it. It's sort of like Back to the Future Part 2. It's just so much fun. All of a sudden, it was like, wow, I didn't ever think this was going to happen. And just like seeing them go to the first Avengers movie and seeing the original Loki again. And then like going way back in time, and then Tony having that great talk with his own dad, like his father. And like, oh, man,
a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, It was just like crammed in the middle. You'd think it would feel tacked on, but it didn't. It was just like, oh, here we go. Let's see more fun stuff. Like, let's just throw like a time travel fun thriller in the middle of here. But
because normally you'd think like, and maybe it'll wear off eventually, but sometimes you watch a movie once and it's great. The second time you watch it, it's like, okay, let's kind of skip past this part to get back to the action. But there was plenty of things going on in this that it was still a really fun ride, as we said. So even when, we're trying to collect all the stones again or things like that, it was still a lot of fun to go through that experience. So I even think that'll hold up even after you watch the movie again.
And I think it'll make you want to watch the previous movies again.
Definitely.
Because you'll see like that part, you're like, oh, I forgot about that part. And then like when you're rewatching the first one, you're like, oh, this is when they came in. Yeah.
And you're still seeing like, what happened maybe after like the first, the main one would be like when they traveled back to the first Avengers movie. Like, so many hilarious things. Again, we're on a laughable point in the movie where they captured Loki. Everyone just goes to the elevator, except for they make Hulk go down the stairs. Just like another just hilarious point in the movie that is part of the plot and everything on like on how things still might not work out. So it was a lot of fun going through like the back ends of what has already happened while they're collecting the stones and everything. So they could have probably, another movie could have made it really boring, but they found a way to make it a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then it kind of kept going. They got all those stones, and at one point they went back to 2014 to the first Guardians movie to get the Galaxy or the Power Stone rather. And then that's when Thanos from 2014 catches onto their tail by hacking into, and all that felt super realistic. And it was like, oh, here's Thanos, and then he was like, when he pulled her memory, he was like, oh, obviously that happened. I'm inevitable. And he's kind of a being that exists sort of outside of time because he's so powerful. So he was like, oh, yeah, obviously this happened. Oh, they did this? All right, well, I'm just going to go kill him again then. Like,
yeah, so basically they sent Nebula and...
yeah, right.
And who was the Nebula's partner? Was it... it was... God, I can't... War Machine? Was it?
Oh, okay.
I believe so.
Yeah.
They sent them, or especially Nebula, to try to find the stone from Star-Lord before him because she already knew the environment. But that's where things all went wrong because since there was two Nebulas on the planet, their memories were intertwining, and that's when, all hell broke loose. Started breaking loose for a second time.
Yeah.
And as you said, so the memories of the event already happening, the snap already happening, Thanos saw it and is just like, of course.
I've been telling you guys this was going to happen.
Yeah, I knew it worked. I knew it was going to work.
Yeah, like he didn't even stop and was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Or he was like, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, and now they're here to try and fuck it up. Well,
yeah, and so then they sent the Nebula that was still evil back, and that's when so many amazing parts and the roller coaster was really going high again, is that they got all the stones, gave the stones to the Hulk because they figured that he could handle it the best.
He could probably survive.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then but Nebula opened the portal for Thanos and his ship to go through. The snap does happen from Hulk, but Thanos is ready to blow the Avengers place to smithereens. So for a second, it's like it worked. Or I mean, well, I guess it did work. It seems hopeful. Birds are chirping, and
then we're back to square one.
Yep, fighting Thanos
again. That we just lost to with the same army, and we're about to fight him again.
Yep. So then it's like, crap, we're screwed again, especially because we have all the stones, and he kind of brings up the point too, where it's like they have the stones all collected. Since they went back before he started collecting all the stones, he's like, well, they already have all the stones from me, and it just kind of starts to become a battle between the current Avengers that are there at the studio or at the Avengers headquarters at the moment, and what comes through the portal initially.
Yeah, and then it's just this huge showdown again, and it's this big fight, and it's super fun to watch. It is kind of a big CGI fest, but one great notable thing. And one of the things when they go back in time, they go to Thor: The Dark World. Yep. Thor has that whole thing where he doesn't think he's worthy, but he gets to talk to his mom again, who had died, and she gives him like some good advice. And then he gets his old Mjolnir from that time because his was destroyed by his sister. And then, so he has the one he made in Infinity War. And so he's got two of them, and he's still fat when they go to the present day or whatever. And then we get to see Captain America is worthy, finally, of holding Mjolnir. And it's like, oh my, just such a huge nerd. It was similar to like there's been a lot of good nerdgasms with these. Like when Thor, or when Iron Man and Captain America fought Thor in the forest in the first Avengers, right? That was a sweet nerdgasm, like when he deflects it when he tries to hit him with the shield and knocks the trees down, and then like when Thor hits Iron Man, it just boosts his power. Like that was a huge nerdgasm. And then like in the second Avengers with the Hulkbuster and he's fighting Hulk, you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. And then this one was like Cap summoning Mjolnir and being worthy after he's been through all his shit. Like, it was like, holy shit, that's amazing.
And the way they revealed it was great because Thor was like down, getting wrecked by Thanos, and you'll see Mjolnir kind of being picked up. But at the first time, I'm like, okay, Thor is trying to pull Mjolnir to maybe knock him out, and then you see Mjolnir is flung towards, stops, comes back, and that's when you're like,
wait, what?
What do you mean Thor is down there and then caught by Captain America? Just an amazing reveal. Yeah.
Oh.
The whole, I mean, it was just an exciting moment. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, in the theater. That was just a wonderful thing. And even Thor, well, and because back in the second Avengers, it was just the tease that he just wiggled it a little bit.
Just a tiny bit, and Thor was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then like after that was when he went through the whole Civil War thing, and it was like he wasn't necessarily worthy because he was still so naive about his past and like relying on the government so much, and he had to like go through all that shit and help all those other people and like kind of become a more realistic, well-rounded person to become worthy. And it was like, it was just so well set up through so many movies again that you're like, oh my God.
And so at that moment too, Thor laying on the ground was like, oh, I knew it. It was just, that was such a fun point in the movie. Like, that was just glorious. And that's when you, I don't know, just felt a lot of hope, like that we can maybe start doing this. And so everyone's still getting beat down a bit until like towards the very end of this original fight, and Captain America, he's got his shield all beaten up and like literally broken.
Oh yeah.
And everyone's down except for Cap gets back up.
And he's the only one
facing thousands.
Thanos' entire army.
And then that's where the glimmer of hope finally starts shining through.
You're right. And it was like just that scene of him standing up in the dust against his whole army, and like he just starts running at him, and you're like, that gave me the chills. My eyes started to tear up a little bit, like, oh fuck, like Cap's going down swinging. He doesn't care. He's like, well, this is how I have to go out. This is how I have to go out.
Yep, I'll still go out defending the world, even if it's only me. But then that's when we're, I guess, I might as well just say the portals start opening up from Doctor Strange, and everyone, since the snap has happened, brought everyone back. Everyone's still in different parts of the world. But with Doctor Strange, he can start opening portals for everyone to come back through. Oh. And that was just... Then all of a sudden you're like, here we go.
Now we have
Everyone's coming out. And this is where it just... it was already going full speed.
Yeah.
But it just kept going.
It was just like Fast and Furious. They were able to downshift one more time. And keep going.
It just kept shifting.
And then, obviously, at the end of the fight, they were Iron Man's right up in Thanos' grill, and he looks over at Doctor Strange, who, had told him before there was only a 1 in whatever many chance. And he looks over at him, and Doctor just slowly gives him the one, like, this is the one time it's going to work.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that gave me the chills. And he was able to finagle the stones away from Thanos, snap, and then, he gets put to rest.
Yeah. So Iron Man must have made it in his suit that he went out in to be able to hold the stones.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yep. Got him away from Thanos. Thanos finally, I guess, has the glove again. We all think we're screwed again. Thanos tries to snap. Nothing happens. And then Iron Man shows that he has all the stones. And that he snaps with the big old eye. Iron Man snap. And then, of course, snaps for Thanos' army to disappear. And I guess, I don't know, was that it? Because everyone was back.
I think so.
Yeah. So just for Thanos' army.
Because Hulk's snap was to bring everyone back.
Yep, which succeeded.
It did, and then it just took a bit for Doctor Strange to get them all back.
And then Iron Man was to make Thanos' army all turn to dust.
Yeah.
Succeeds, and then that's when the part that we've kind of mentioned, where then obviously to even wield the stones takes a lot of power to snap alone.
Yep. Like it injured Thanos.
Yeah.
Like where he couldn't even really use that arm anymore, and
Mm-hmm.
he's more powerful than Hulk, you know.
Yep. And so obviously Iron Man definitely at the low point in his life.
Yeah.
And pushed up against a rock, and that's kind of where Pepper came up and said, you know, you're good. You can finally rest.
Yeah, you're safe.
Oh man, and I just had I'm a crier in movies because I can just let them go, and boy, I just had tears rolling down my face, especially when Spider-Man comes up and then it's Spider-Man watching Iron Man, kind of disappear, die. It's like, oh my gosh, so heart wrenching, like really happy, but at the same time you're like, oh my gosh, that sucked.
But then Captain America got his good happy ending, the best ending ever, like we alluded to. So they sent him back in time to
put the stones back. And then he was going to be gone for like 5 seconds, since time moves faster. I guess slower in the past. So sent him back, and then he missed his entrance back. Yep. Everyone's like, "What's going on? Get him back!"
Yeah.
And then you see him on a bench in the distance, and then you just know that he stayed back in time to live out his own life, and it just really wraps up him great because he was originally frozen and missed being out with his love of his life.
Yep. He missed his dance. He never got to live a normal life.
Yep.
He sacrificed all that literally for his country.
Yep. His whole life was for his country, and so once it was all safe, the world was safe even, he just went back in time and just lived out his life.
And it was like, and like you think like, oh well, if he was in World War II, like he should be older than that, but it's like he still has that regenerative healing thing, so I'm sure he aged slower. Anyway, but just him having the shield and handing it off to Falcon and just being like, you think you can take this for me? And it's like, oh man.
Old man Cap was just awesome.
Good. Perfect. It was like finally he got to, that was his happy ending.
Yep.
And it was so well deserved.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, the whole movie, again, just as like a director or something, it had to be like the hardest thing in the world. There's just a bunch of big names, like, and to make sure everyone gets screen time, everyone like gets a punch in that you can see and everything. Like, everyone was so balanced. Obviously, they paid a lot of tribute to the main characters from the beginning, which makes sense.
You have to.
Yeah, you have to. In fact, obviously, I should mention that they kind of sent, got there, spacing on her name already. The one right at the end of the movie, right?
Black Widow.
The
Peggy Carter.
No,
Pepper Potts. Captain Marvel.
The girl power movie.
Captain Marvel.
Oh yeah, Captain Marvel. You just said that. But so she was kind of gone saving other planets.
Yeah,
and because if she was here again,
easy.
she's really strong.
Yeah,
and so it wouldn't have been as much as a fight. Even though she did get thrown, that was an amazing throw.
It was. Yeah,
she got thrown pretty like a rag doll, which was pretty cool to see that scene as well. But it would have definitely been a bit of different story. So it's still like, Iron Man, Captain America, all the original cast still battling it out, so you can see them all fighting one last time.
Yeah.
But still playing plenty of tribute to the other superheroes that we have come to see as well.
100%.
And so it's just got to be so hard to piece that all together, make sure all these huge names work. But they did it. They did it, and
somehow they did.
Yeah, and it just was just a fun movie all throughout.
I don't know how they did it. Again, like, this was a huge feat, and it's like, think it's why we loved it so much. It was like it had so much to do, and it like gave us more, at least me, more than I thought we were gonna get, and it just it really gave us a great ending. So now it's like I can be done with Marvel movies for a while, like these big Avengers ones. Like I'm okay with, because this was such a great ending. It's like, let's just give it some time to breathe. Like we've had so many years of this. Every summer, getting another big one every couple summers for these Avengers ones. Like, I'm good for a little break. Let's give ourselves a breather. Let's kind of rebuild it, and like we'll see what happens. Like this is now the foundation of the movie industry. At this point, the big money maker. So it's like whenever they come back, they're gonna make money, and as long as Kevin Feige's at the helm, like I feel like they're gonna be fine. But we do have a couple coming up.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
So we were going to go over the ones that we know are coming up for sure.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just kind of cool to see that that they took this risk way at the beginning to try to mold everyone into one giant movie, and it paid off. I think
who knew that it was going to just shape the movie industry for the rest of time.
Mm-hmm. And others are going to want to try it.
Yeah, and fail.
DC has been wanted to just get right to the point too, but it is something that like you almost do have to invest 10 years to try to do something this large. Like you can have other collabs, but yeah, to have something as huge as this is, and just a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, this it needed to take 10 years in the making to get this far.
Yep, and it was all because of that first Iron Man was such a big hit, and it was like, oh, we can do something cool and unique with this, and we might have an idea here, and did a great job. So these are the ones that we know for sure coming out, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So what's the first one on our docket here?
Our first one, Spider-Man: Far From Home. That one's coming up still this summer, July 5th. I do kind of feel like this one's okay to swing into next, especially since Spider-Man
swing into.
Especially since
let's see.
Oh,
they loved it. Wow, that was a big hit. Stop.
Yeah, right.
That's enough, guys. Come on, we got to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But,
Wait, is there a laugh? Yeah, they love it. It's funny.
The studio audience.
They're great.
But yeah, Spider-Man Far From Home feels like a good one. It's
to follow up. Endgame.
I feel like I do need something that is like an actual, just a
smaller,
it's a small,
not
movie.
As high stakes.
Again,
kind of
I might even not watch this in theaters, but I feel like this is a good one just to release, because if it was something else like the next Black Panther or something, then I feel like that's just would really be setting it up for failure. Spider-Man's just a movie that's just going to have people go see it.
Like,
but
people
also,
are going to see Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Everybody likes Spider-Man.
But also everyone that's going to want a break can take a break and not feel bad about not waiting to see this.
Right.
Because we just need to have a breath of fresh air for a second.
Right. So I believe this was when he's abroad, right? He's in London.
Yep. So he's going to London for a school trip. Seems like it'll be an okay story. He'll bump into some villains again, probably.
Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, which I'm super excited about. Because Jake Gyllenhaal is become... I've said it before, I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, I'm sure I have, that he's probably my favorite working actor. And most of it is the amount of prep he puts into every role. And he's just literally, I think it's hard to argue that he's not one of the best working. He's just amazing. And to see him in a Marvel movie is cool. And as Mysterio is very interesting. Mysterio's a weird character, very interesting, trippy stuff. And so I'm there must have been something other than, maybe it was just the dump trucks full of cash that they offered him for it. But I think there's got to be something in the script that would make him, because he's been very selective about his roles. So there's got to be something about the character that he really latched onto. And just based on some of the, again, I haven't watched trailers for it, but I've seen some pictures and it looks like he might potentially be trying to maybe initially take the role that Tony Stark was for Peter as like kind of a role model, and kind of that influence, which would be a super interesting arc for a villain. So the first one was kind of surprisingly super fun and a great high school movie, and had a really good villain. And so I'm excited about this one too.
Yeah, this does bring up the only one thing I've heard from people saying, or at least just one of my friends said it right after the movie. Just being related to high school. 5 years did pass.
Yeah.
But he just kind of hopped in, and it looks like he's in the same class as his friends from before.
Yeah.
It's fine for me.
But I think that,
So you would think that he wouldn't be in the same class,
Yeah, because wouldn't that... Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one thing that...
Well, I guess we'll see what
think,
they...
Yeah, I know. We'll see if something's in this one. Otherwise, it's just something that... might just be, well, it's probably not an oversight. I'm sure that they thought about it, but maybe just saying like, who cares? Just let him, like
he wants to be with his friends.
We're just gonna let this movie slide that he's still in the same class. I can totally understand that too. But I mean, you don't have to think about like, wait a minute. But it is just kind of fun to think about that. But anyways, after that, the next one, which looks like it still doesn't have a date, is the Black Widow movie coming out.
Yeah, so this one has been in development for a while, and I think they were kind of waiting to do this one because they've been rumoring this since basically the first Avengers, because she has been a great character for them. Yeah. But I think that even at that time, unfortunately, there was just that stigma of female-led superhero movies that just didn't do well at the box office. It just so happened that all those movies were fucking terrible. But like, this is one that like, there's some other, like, characters and movies that we don't need to see, and who knows if we need to see Black Widow movie. But her backstory is so interesting.
Yeah.
I would love to see a Russian spy training camp.
Yeah, that can be very fun.
Very fun and interesting and espionage. And it wouldn't really be a superhero movie. It would just be like an old school 60s Russian spy movie.
Yeah.
And I'd be so in on that.
Yeah, definitely. And she was, one of the first Avengers here, and so it is nice to see them paying tribute. Yeah, I do think we're in a better time, because even though, again, with the female superheroes and everything like that, I guess, she was the only female superhero right off the bat.
Yeah.
And so it probably was a good thing to wait till we had a lot more female superheroes coming in, and now we can expect a Black Widow movie without even batting an eye. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I again, we don't have a date on this, so I hope it gets made. Scarlett Johansson's a bankable star. I don't know if she would want to do it, but I think it'd be super fun. You could do it like an action-y spy movie, and it could be super dark too. It wouldn't. I think it'd be really foolish if they tried to make it this huge, big spectacle.
Oh yeah.
Just keep it like a small spy movie. I would absolutely love that.
Yeah, yeah. And you'll know more about this next one here. So why don't you take her off?
Okay. So Eternals. Again, this does not have a date either. So Chloe Zhao, I believe she's actually a South Dakota Film Festival alum. I believe she had a film that came a few years ago. But she's attached to direct Jack Kirby's The Eternals. So The Eternals is kind of an interesting... It's a set of characters, but I don't know how this would be played out. They're celestials. They're basically gods. And so... I'm not sure. Like, it's like, how do you...
Yeah, we'll just have to...
You just have to see how they play it out. Like, I'm pretty sure that, like, on that one planet, or in Nowhere, in Guardians of the Galaxy, that skull, that was the skull of a celestial, I'm pretty sure.
Sure.
So, like, they're these huge basically just gods, and it's like, Jack Kirby has really interesting, weird comics, and it was very psychedelic and big and interesting. I don't know how that fits in with the Marvel Universe. If it's just like a weird one-off, almost like a period piece type deal. I don't know how you do it. But I don't know. I mean, I guess it'd be interesting to see. I think I'd probably enjoy this more as just a one-off rather than try to tie it into everything
definitely.
else, you know.
Yeah, which maybe is what they kind of maybe plan on doing with this one.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, being that, I don't think they'll ever set up for Endgame 2,
Right.
I don't think they're setting up another 10-year plan. And so I do think they're going to
I think that's the direction they have to go with Marvel. It's just like, at least for a while, just do one-offs, just do like little, you could do maybe like team-up movies, like do like one movie here, another movie, and then combine the characters for their own movie. Yeah. Like you could do prequels, like with the Black Widow, you could do like a Black Widow movie from a prequel. Mm-hmm. You could do like, and then you could do another one with her when she first meets Hawkeye. Like you could do a movie like that and just have them be doing stuff. Because they did all kinds of weird S.H.I.E.L.D. spy missions, like I feel like you could do that pretty easily and just kind of keep with those one-offs and play with the timelines and stuff. But
so just kind of assuming with this one, it'll probably be more on its own. But we're probably in a time that is exactly what they really need to do here.
Yeah.
But that'll kind of swing back into Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which will be, it'll probably be maybe even...
I think
a 20 years,
21 maybe.
Yeah, so and to get another team up movie again.
Yeah. So I'd really like you guys to listen to my last episode about do DC movies still suck, because Les and I talked about James Gunn on there, and I'll kind of reiterate a little bit of what I said since Tyler's here.
Yep.
But James Gunn was initially fired from this film. From directing it by Disney. Did you know about that? Did you see that whole controversy?
No.
So it was about 6 months ago. He got fired from Disney because people, trolls, dug up old tweets of his from like 2010, and they were not good tweets. They were about like, it was like just really dumb jokes that were just stupid. And some of them were about, like, molesting kids. Like, it was just, like, raunchy, dumb jokes.
Okay, yep.
And, like, James Gunn came out with a statement because those tweets got dug up and, like, tweeted out or whatever. And James Gunn was like, look, I was a different person then. And he's like, at the time, I was going for that kind of shocking humor, that inappropriate humor just to shock and awe people or whatever, And he was like, I realized it was offensive, and he's like, I didn't. Now, basically, he was just like, look, we all make mistakes, and we have to move from them. And I was a different person back then than I am now.
And that's not who I am.
And that's not who I am now. And like, I show everyone, like, please, like, go find his statement, because it was just a masterclass of how to deal with that kind of stuff. Like, he wasn't like, oh my God, I didn't mean it. He was just like, yeah, look, I said that stuff. He didn't say he didn't say it. He was like, he admitted to it. He's like, I did it. And he's like, yeah, it was dumb. And it was like, he was like, I was a different person then. I was going for a different thing.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not proud of it.
I'm embarrassed of it now.
I'm embarrassed by it.
Yep.
And, and he was like, and then Disney still fired him after he gave that great comment. And so many people were upset because it's like, Guardians of the Galaxy are about flawed people who have bad pasts who overcome that to do good things. Like that's what his movies are about, And it was just like, come on, Disney, like you're better than that, like because it wasn't like it made perfect sense. He wasn't hiding behind anything. It's not like he kept doing it. It was literally from like 10 years ago, And it was just like it wasn't fair. And he got fired. He didn't make a big deal out of it. Mm-hmm. Well, then DC smartly stepped in and hired him to do Suicide Squad sequel, The Suicide Squad, which was like a big fuck you to Marvel.
Yeah,
And it was like, that's great. It was a great hire on DC's part.
Yeah, it is.
And Warner Brothers did a great job of that, so he's working on that. And then it was like a couple months later, and Disney was like, you know what? We think we made a mistake, and they hired him back to do Guardians 3. And it was like, thank you, Disney. Like, and they were kind of like, we shouldn't have fired him. Like, we've maybe made a mistake on that.
Is acting fast because of bad press.
Yeah, like they just kind of, it was a knee jerk reaction, and it's like good for everybody involved. Like I think it was dumb that Disney fired him in the first place, and they maybe kind of had to, I guess. But like, I don't know. really, honestly, like, everybody should go find his press release for that because it was so perfect. And I'm just glad that he got back to, because Guardians of the Galaxy is just so his. It's 100% his franchise.
Yeah.
It's his tone.
That's great.
He brought it all to it. He wanted these, and it's like, it wouldn't be where it's at without him. So, like, you can't, it'd be so weird to see someone do, like, an impression of a Guardians movie without him on it. So, like, and I think it's going to bring a lot to Volume 3, because I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder a little bit, too, with it, But I think they did push production back on this because he did get hired for the Suicide Squad sequel now.
Yeah.
But anyway, at the end of the day, Disney did hire him back, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, it's good. Mm-hmm.
And then we'd have the Black Panther sequel. Again, no date on this. I believe, Ryan Coogler is returning to direct. So as we said, Black Panther made over $1 billion, so obviously they greenlit a sequel right away. Mm-hmm. I don't know what story they're going to do. I don't think they do either. But there's a lot of different ways you could go. I would kind of, I don't know. I would kind of like them to focus on. It'd be cool if, like, there's a great part in the comics where he married Storm from the X-Men. And now X-Men are part of Marvel.
Yep.
So that'd be kind of cool to see that come into play, because Storm is one of the most powerful mutants out there, and she married, blanking on his name, T'Chaka?
I'm not quite sure myself either.
T'Challa. But she married him, and he's just like a dude who's really athletic, right? Like, he's basically Captain America. Uh-huh. So, but it's like, it's just cool in the comics that she's one of the most powerful whatever, and she's like his queen. Like, she's still whatever. It was just cool. So that'd be interesting. I mean, that wouldn't do a whole, like, rom-com about that, like a whole movie, but
it is interesting to know that possibilities are there. Yep.
So, like, there's that. There could be, I don't know, you could go a lot of different ways with it. It could be another African tribe coming up, or, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways you could go, I guess.
Yeah, yes. And so then after that, we'd probably be looking at Doctor Strange, as long as we're following the schedule that's out right now, which sounds pretty fun. It would be fun to watch another Doctor Strange film. I did really enjoyed the last one, which, again, we did kind of talk about in the first podcast again. So, go back and watch the first podcast of the Avengers. But, yeah, Doctor Strange is just kind of a character that I hope a lot of people are giving a try to, because it is trippy a little bit and very, I guess, you kind of like a sorcerer or whatever.
Yeah, he's a sorcerer supreme. Yeah,
and so it's just it is like a little bit different formula of a superhero, and so they're just kind of enjoyable to watch. It is almost like a break of just like straight action, because there's just a little bit extra element to it. So I'd be looking forward to another Doctor Strange sequel.
And I like Scott Derrickson. He's kind of a horror guy too. And I liked the first Doctor Strange. I thought it was a little too paint by numbers for me. You can listen to the first one. But I loved the ending of it.
Yeah, definitely.
And, like, I think that once you have one in the bag, I feel like the second one you can kind of take more chance with. We don't have to play catch-up with the character as much, because there was a lot, like, of learning to do for main audiences, like, who didn't know Doctor Strange. So I understand why they took those things. And, like, they set up characters like the starts with an M. I always forget his name, but he was set up to be the next big baddie. So, like, that's a pretty easy transition into the second one, and I'd love to see it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, me too. So that's pretty much what we're looking for movies, at least
that we know of for now. And, like, maybe after those they just take a little bit of a break. I'd be completely fine with that. And just kind of see what happens. Just let us take a breather and then kind of build up the want for it again until, a couple years off, and then maybe come back.
Yeah, and so depending on when you're listening to this podcast, and maybe the Disney Plus subscription has already happened at this point or not, because they'll be starting to move towards that now, their own kind of Netflix version of all the Disney movies, which huge catalog for that.
Yeah.
But they'll be looking at doing kind of their own movie or TV shows at least as well. There's a couple slated for there. Like the first one that we're kind of looking at is WandaVision is
Boy,
slated.
that's an awful title. I hope they don't keep that.
yeah. Who knows? I assume that they're at least planning on going with it, but who knows what anything
terrible.
could change at this point, especially because at the time of us recording this, I don't even think Disney Plus has a date. They're just talking about it coming out, so who knows what could happen here, being that Disney Plus isn't even a thing at the moment,
right?
Just being talked about. But yeah, they're even looking at doing some little TV series. Yeah, WandaVision's one.
So that's with the Scarlet Witch and Vision that are in some kind of relationship, which was a great part of Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were really good together, and it was like you really cared. Was it Age of Ultron? No, it was Civil War. Was their relationship?
Yeah. They just pieced them together
in
Vision
Ultron.
and just in general in Ultron, and then
Civil War was when their kind of relationship started to blossom, and you really felt it. So I'd definitely be into seeing more of that.
Yeah, they were pretty fun. I especially even think Vision was really fun, as being kind of like a bland character, but you knew that like Vision had to be like always right. I don't know. Vision's just one of those kind of interesting guys as well. And we didn't get to really see too much screen time with Vision, so it'd be fun to maybe see some more screen time from Vision and things like that.
Yeah, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier. So this is one that if I had to pick any of them, this is the one I would definitely watch.
This is a surefire, probably instant.
Huge hit.
Yeah, for anybody.
So if this is going to be a show, Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm guessing that'd be about them post Endgame and them kind of figuring out who's going to pick up the Captain America mantle. Because in the comics, Falcon takes up the mantle after Steve Rogers steps down for a while, and he's Captain American, but can fly. And then eventually Bucky, Winter Soldier, picks up the mantle as well after Falcon, and like Deadpool calls him Bucky Cap, which is always funny. That's how I always think of him too, just because Deadpool calls him that, so I always think of him as Bucky Cap. But so I would love to see kind of a buddy cop thing with those two, where they have an interesting past where they're kind of friends now, but they weren't always friends. They kind of hated each other too. So it's interesting. It would be fun to see them kind of haggle over who takes up the mantle of Captain America. I'm all in on this for sure.
Yeah. Then moving into possible Hawkeye Disney Plus series, which again I think I'm sure people would watch it. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm not too sure on the general audience's opinion on Hawkeye anymore. Especially if this is like really far down on the line, people might already kind of forget about Hawkeye again.
And it looks like they're saying that it's expected to see Jeremy Renner give the mantle over to the next Hawkeye in line, which would be Kate Bishop. Which makes sense. Get Jeremy Renner out of there.
Yeah,
I'm sure
definitely.
He's done.
Yeah, I'm sure Jeremy.
He's sick of it.
Yeah, and so that might be good.
But
as
didn't
well.
he die in Endgame?
No, it was.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, Black Widow.
We already did.
Yeah, basically.
I couldn't remember because they both
kept
running and tripping.
Yeah, I couldn't. I thought for a second both of them were gonna die.
Yeah, fucking Nat.
Yeah, but then so Jeremy Renner lived on, I guess. But which I was like all good with. Jeremy Renner going off the cliff.
We all were.
They wanted another turd jerk here, which I didn't. It didn't even though I like a good old cry in a movie, I still like. I don't know. There just wasn't it wasn't set up to like kind of for me at least to cry at that part. So I just thought
Yeah.
Jeremy Renner could have just
Easily
off.
just died, yeah.
I feel bad because I do like Hawkeye, but
I know.
at the same time, it was just like, Jeremy Renner, you can just jump. But yeah, so we'll see how that one goes too. And then this one would be at least pretty interesting. Looking at a Loki one as well.
Yeah, and who really knows? They could kind of go 1,000 different ways. He died in Infinity War, but then he had to have been brought back by the snap, right?
Yeah, I'd figure.
So it would he'd be back, and he'd be up to no good.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that Fat Thor makes an appearance at some point in here, but
yeah, especially, I mean, and who even knows? I guess when any of these might come out or whatever, but I think Loki, again, as you kind of said, he could go in any direction and do, because we just all know Loki is up to some crazy things, and
right.
so no
He's
matter
the
where
god
you
of
put him,
mischief,
no matter where you put him, you could probably make an entertaining story with them, just because you know that he's going to be up to some devious things.
Like if it was me and I was starting this Disney Plus series, I would want to start it with the Loki series, because he's a huge fan favorite. Everybody loves him. That's what fan favorite means, Luke. And so he brings in money and he brings in viewers, and I think people are going to be on board either way. But like to really start this off, Loki would be the one, I think, to actually get people to convert to watch it. Even though I think that if they did like a Falcon, Bucky Cap one, like that might be better, but I feel like Loki is going to put asses in seats. And that might be a turning point to get people to sign up for
that's
it.
probably what's going to maybe sell subscriptions right off the bat. Because that's obviously what they're going to want to care about, even though it's probably going to sell itself right off at the beginning. But what can get the people who are on the fence about it on it
is Loki.
Especially Loki. Yeah, he's just, everyone's loved him. One of the better villains, as we kind of talked about, one of the only better villains in Marvel. So obviously, people still do like a good villain story. So it would probably do well for Disney Plus at least to do a Loki movie. Or, I mean Loki TV series. So,
and it could just be like him getting himself into trouble, and then like that dynamic of how he's charming and you like him and you like think, oh, maybe he's actually going to do something good, and then he just pulls the rug out from underneath. And you're like, oh, you. And then they just go to the next one. I'd be all in on that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that's just kind of what we're looking at, even just for the future of Marvel at the moment. So they still got plenty ahead. Just pretty much wrapped up. I'd even say more than just a chapter, wrapped up a book, and just starting off. Still don't want to throw in the towel though. They're just going to keep doing a little bit here and there.
They should just. I think they should just make it smaller. We've already gone big. Just keep that little bits coming out. Keep it interesting. Keep us on your mind, and then maybe in 5 years we'd be ready for another big Avengers movie. And just kind of build it up. Like Star Wars is going to take a break after this next one, which is good, I think.
Yeah, it is. And
it's like, you need that time, but in between to build up the want again and kind of restart and go from there. So officially, this is our longest episode of all time. Let's hear it. Good. Wow, we went up there.
They're all three.
They can't wait. Look can't wait. They can't wait for us to start. We haven't started yet.
This is just the pre-show.
Let's do it. Buckle up, guys. We're going to go over all this one more time just for you.
But I do have final thoughts just to wrap everything up too. I just think I don't know how many series can do this. Not like that all of them were just bangers, but there wasn't any that were shit. And there's been a lot of movies.
A lot. And for Disney to keep that up and to have the worst movie be just a bland action movie that wasn't god awful is very impressive.
They have a great track record running right now. Because there's definitely been big groups of movies, maybe even like 5 in a series, and then it's just like, okay, but there's like 3 of them that are shit, so you have to watch out for these. But these are like, even if you just pick up even just the regular superhero movies, you're still not gonna watch a shit movie. And I think that's a
testament to how. Like, they were somehow able to... I just got done reading a book on Enron, and one of the things Enron did was they had off-market entities, and they kind of called off-market hedge funds, where they illegally, by the way, bet on themselves and put away money so that they couldn't lose money investing in stocks, which is illegal. And that's kind of what Marvel's done somehow. Like at the worst, their stock price isn't going to go down. Like, they're not going to have a bad movie, and it's like, how are you doing this? Clearly, they have illegal hedge funds somewhere to keep those up. But that being said, I'm excited for the future here and where they take it. And I'm sure we'll do another one of these at some point, you know. But maybe we can do it after we've seen these next couple movies, and maybe if Disney Plus comes out, we can kind of go over those and see where we're at. But that being said, you can find me on Twitter at LukeLarson89, this podcast on Facebook at L2 Podcast, on Twitter at L2 Podcast. We're on SoundCloud, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram and see our reviews of movies. And then don't forget to donate to the Patreon. You know, we're trying to find new tiers. Obviously, we have the $57,000 a month. And again, that's going to be for Gerdo and I reenacting the movie Face Off, naked on my couch. And most of that money is going to obviously go towards getting Nick Cage there to watch us do that for him. And then we're working on other tiers as well. That's just kind of, you know, one that's been ruminating. But if there's other things you guys want to see on the show, you know, just let us know. We can get that Patreon going. So,
yeah, hope you guys all made it to the end. Thanks for listening to us ramble. We had a blast just talking about these. I know it might have went a little long, but I hope you all enjoyed it.
Yeah. Peace.